unveiling of a luxury bag with the suggestion that this was not the first time an expensive gift had been offered has added fuel to a burning societal resentment that has been fermenting for years and has now spilled over into parliamentary elections with the potential for long-lasting consequences. Several months after the incident, President Yoon offered a public apology for what he described as the unwise conduct of his spouse. Kim Keon-hee has herself withdrawn from public view. What does the gift of a handbag say about South Korean politics? In this case, a very great deal. This inquiry was presented by me, Tanya Beckett, produced by Louise Clark, edited by Tara McDermott, researched by Matt Toulson, and the studio manager was Craig Boardman.
That was the inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. The show is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube this morning. It is 3 minutes to 6 o'clock, and let's say hello to the team. Good morning, Mr. Corey Funk. Corey directs the program, and we'll be covering On the Air Commute for you. Also, we have Abby Adeyemi. Good morning, Abby. Abby is our technical producer on InfoRad, and we'll be covering weather on the air. And good morning to the folks behind the YouTube controls. Brad Lillies. Hi, Brad. And Dylan Longhurst also in today. Good morning, Dylan. Heather Wells is here, too. It is time to check in with what's happening with our news headlines, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the weather today. Hi, Heather.
Hi, good morning. Well, Tuxedo has made history. The constituency, Tory Blue for its entire 4 decades, has elected an NDP MLA. Carla Compton, a nurse, is Tuxedo's MLA-elect. She beat the PC's Lawrence Pinsky by a margin of just over 600 votes. Manitoba Premier Rob Canoe says that by-election win shows Manitobans are rejecting divisive politics. So we'll hear more about the by-election in Tuxedo throughout the morning. And a Winnipeg community group worries proposed funding cuts could lead to children going hungry. We'll hear from the Spence Neighborhood Association. It's just one of the groups arguing against a plan to cut $2.1 million from the city's community grant program. Those stories and more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, we have Carla Compton in studio with us live, the NDP elect for Tuxedo, and she will be joining us in studio at 10 to 8. So that's coming up this morning. Also in studio, we're going to be looking at the stats that came out yesterday from the Winnipeg Police Service. There's been an increase in violent crime in Winnipeg. Over the last 5 years, a 30% increase. Youth crime has almost doubled. So we're going to hear from some people out and about in some of the neighborhoods where crime stats were highest. Also, we're going to talk to someone that leads a Winnipeg youth organization to help young people in the city, so stay tuned for that. So that's a little bit later. In the first hour of the show, Agape Table says it's experiencing unprecedented demand for food, and they're running out. So we're going to revisit an interview that was on CBC yesterday afternoon in the hopes of reaching more people that are listening. A high today of 20 in Winnipeg. We're starting with a fairly clear sky downtown.
On Cue with Tom Power.
Here's a question. Do you think you need to go through something hard like trauma in order to be funny? Do you think behind every joke there's some sadness? Paul Scheer has some thoughts on that as he's here to talk about his new memoir, Joyful Recollections of Trauma.
This trauma that I lived through, that is the fire in which I was forged.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Canada's below-target defense spending will be a sore spot. The NATO Secretary General visits Ottawa today. Jens Stoltenberg is expected to raise the issue when he meets with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But the government is defending its stance. It says the Department of National Defense already has more money than it can spend. The CBC's Murray Brewster has the details.
I think inevitably we will go to 2%.
Defense Minister Bill Blair putting the best face on what could be an awkward visit by NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. New data published by the Military Alliance shows Canada is now among 8 other nations that do not meet the NATO spending target of 2% of GDP. Canada is expected to hit 1.37% this year. But significantly, it has not produced a plan, as requested, to get to 2%.
It is fairly superficial to only speak about 2% without examining how the funding is going to be spent in the short and the long term.
Treasury Board President Anita Anand defending the reluctance to articulate a plan for 2%, noting the Defense Department has trouble spending its budget each year, mostly because it doesn't have enough staff to properly manage complex procurement projects.
Why would we continue to fill the books with additional money if that money can't get out the doors?
That is a very good point, one that has been repeated around Ottawa for over a decade in not one, but two independent studies which warned both the current Liberal government and the previous Conservative government that more staff were needed. The latest defense policy promises to hire more procurement staff to address the shortfall critical to meeting the NATO goal, but that will only happen next year. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
NDP MP Jenny Kwan says it is time to name names. She wants the House of Commons to publicly name the politicians accused of taking part in foreign interference.
It will send a clear message to those foreign states that they will not be able to continue to use parliamentarians in this way.
But right now, those names are classified. For more, let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what exactly is Kwan asking for here?
Marcia, Jenny Kwan argues her right to do her job without fear or intimidation has been compromised now that this committee says at least a few of her colleagues are witting or semi-witting participants in foreign meddling. She's calling on House Speaker Greg Fergus to agree, triggering a debate on what our elected officials are prepared to do to protect their independence and integrity. It's not unlike what played out last year when Michael Chong and Aaron O'Toole argued that their rights were breached after they learned from media reports that CSIS held intelligence on how the MPs and their families were being targeted by diplomats at Beijing's consulate in Toronto. The diplomat that Canada eventually expelled was also found to be in contempt of Parliament. But this time, the person or persons that this process might hold accountable could be serving among them. The House already passed a motion asking the ongoing public inquiry to specifically probe the participation of parliamentarians in foreign interference. But it's not clear that the Commissioner would be legally clear to publicly name names in that process either. Richard Fadden, a former head of Canada's spy agency, says at the end of the day, politicians have to police themselves.
I think we need some form of parliamentary involvement in this because this isn't entirely a security and intelligence issue or a national security issue. It's an accountability issue.
But isn't the House about to rise for the summer, like imminently?
That's right. Might be only a few hours away now from this 3-month summer recess for MPs. If the Speaker agrees with Kwan, this process might not play out until fall. But there are extraordinary legalities involved. If MPs are heading towards revealing names under the cover of their parliamentary privilege, that would otherwise be a violation of the Secrets Act. Relaxing summer? Maybe not so much with this hanging over everyone.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. It is a united stand against Washington. The leaders of North Korea and Russia have signed a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement. Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un signed the deal after meeting today in Pyongyang. They spoke for 2 hours. Kim pledged his full support for Russia's war in Ukraine. The partnership commits North Korea to closer economic and military cooperation. In South Africa, incumbent President Cyril Ramaphosa is taking the oath of office for the second time.
I, Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
Ramaphosa's ANC party was able to form a coalition government after failing to win a majority in last month's elections. Former political rivals are now government partners, and the ANC says it will ensure that all parties are represented in government. Some South Africans say they hope this new coalition will help bring unity to the continent's most industrialized nation. A heat dome is expected to descend over Nova Scotia today. That means some people will be flocking to the beach. And for the first time this summer, the province is planning to warn beachgoers about an increase in shark sightings. The CBC's Kayla Hounsell has that story.
Nova Scotia boasts 13,000 kilometers of coastline. But now the province wants you to consider, if you come play in Canada's ocean playground, there's a chance you could be joined by the great white shark.
We've had some sightings, and we've had to clear the water.
Paul Dion is the director of the Nova Scotia Lifeguard Service. There have been reports of 2 attacks in recent years. A swimmer was injured, a dog killed. But Dion says the goal is not to alarm people. There will not be scary pictures of sharks with sharp teeth as there are in some parts of the United States.
It's going to be the same sign with the information about the lifeguards, water temperature, air temperature, and there will be a QR code that says beach safety information.
That QR code will take smartphone users to some information, letting them know they should not swim near seals and not at dawn and dusk when sharks are feeding.
It's about a situational awareness.
Fred Worski is the director of the Ocean Tracking Network, which monitors the behavior of sharks. He says there's growing evidence there are more sharks along Canada's east coast now, partially because of conservation measures and a rapidly growing food supply.
We have to remember that we are guests in the ocean, whereas it is home for animals like sharks.
And he says part of being a good guest is trying not to do anything that could cause any harm. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
People across the United States are celebrating Juneteenth today. June 19th is a national holiday recognizing the end of slavery in most states. It was only on this day in 1865 when the Emancipation Proclamation was ordered to be enforced in Texas, 2 years after it was signed into law. The Civil War was over, but the law only applied to former Confederate states. It took several months before enslaved people in other states gained their freedom. And on this day, people are remembering a legend, Willie Mays. He died on Tuesday at the age of 93. The Hall of Famer is one of the game's most beloved players, and he was a pioneer as a member of the Negro Leagues. Steve Futterman has more on Mays' life and legacy.
He was a magical player.
Here's the pitch to Willie. Swung on, hit deep to left. That one is way back, way back, way back.
At times it seemed there was nothing Willie Mays couldn't do. Barry Bloom is a longtime sports writer who covered Mays.
He could hit, he could run, he had a great arm.
He hit more than 600 home runs, yet his most famous play is his over-the-shoulder catch in the 1954 World Series, a catch some consider the greatest in the history of baseball.
Just brought this crowd to its feet with a catch, which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
Last night, in a remarkable convergence of events, at the very moment Mays' death was announced, here in his hometown of Birmingham, Mays and other black baseball pioneers were being saluted as part of a week-long series of events honoring the early black players. A special minor league game had to be interrupted.
One of the greatest players in the history of our game has passed away at the age of 93. He was born here in Alabama, got his start in this very ballpark.
Tomorrow was set to be the culmination of the week's events, a game between Mays' team, the San Francisco Giants, and the St. Louis Cardinals. On Monday, Mays announced he would not be able to make it. Now, Major League Baseball is planning a special memorial for Willie Mays. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Birmingham, Alabama.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Some nice sunshine has just started to creep into downtown Winnipeg. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live on CBC 89.3 FM. It's 11 degrees in Winnipeg right now. The forecast in a moment. You might also be listening on 990 AM on the app or on YouTube this morning. Thanks for being with us. This hour on the show, we're going to talk about something that's of great concern. Agape Table says it's experiencing unprecedented demand for food right now in our community. We're going to learn more about that. In addition, the U.S. Surgeon General this week floated the idea of putting warning notes on social media platforms. Yesterday on the program, we had a conversation with a local teacher who said she has concerns about how social media had been used in her classroom. This hour, we're going to look at a little bit of the research as well as we continue to float the idea, to explore the idea, that's been floated by the U.S. Surgeon General. Would warnings actually work? How far would they go? So stay tuned for that. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for news. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba Premier Rob Canoe says his party's by-election win in a longtime PC stronghold shows Manitobans are rejecting divisive politics. Canoe's NDP won in Tuxedo last night. Now, that constituency's been Tory blue for 4 decades. Carla Compton, a nurse, is Tuxedo's MLA-elect. She beat the PC's Lawrence Pinsky by a margin of just over 600 votes. We'll hear more coming up as well. An RCMP officer has admitted policies were not followed the day a 54-year-old man died in a police holding cell in the Paw. The inquest into the death of John Edaway Capo was heard day 2 yesterday. We'll take you there in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells with headlines, and of course, 6:30, the next local cast. Right now, Abby Adeyemi, how you doing?
Getting closer to summer. I'm just feeling the weather outside right now.
I know, although it doesn't feel like we're close. The eastern part of Canada is just cooking, but we're not there yet.
We're not there yet, but it's coming. We're going to be getting to the 20s sometime in the weekend, and then welcome to summer.
And tomorrow's the official first day of summer.
Official first day of summer, correct. How was your driving? I saw some clouds, and I'm like, is this gonna go away?
Yeah,
I
had the same question when I was driving in. I thought, okay, it's actually going to be a little bit chilly, and then all of a sudden, out our studio window right now is just like, oh, there's a promise of a beautiful day. What are we going to get?
Yeah, this is definitely going to warm us up. Right now, it's 11 degrees in the downtown. Just a bit of sun starting to make its way through the clouds. It started off cloudy. We have a slight chance of showers this morning, but don't worry, that's going to be clearing up as the morning progresses. Expect light breeze though from the west through the day, and we will be reaching a high of around 20 degrees. Tonight begins clear and then later partly cloudy, and we'll see light breeze all through the night. For tomorrow, it's just going to shape up to be another sunny one. But right now, Winnipeg, it's 11 degrees. We started with some cloudy conditions, and we're going to a slight chance of showers this morning. It's going to be sunny. We're going to see clearing through the morning, and then the high for today, 20. Still a little bit cool, but I'll take that for now.
Yeah, pretty pleasant. Mm-hmm. Nice enough. Corey Funk, good morning.
Morning.
How you doing?
Good. I'm trying to think what the opposite of a heat dome is. Whatever we're in right now. A snow globe.
I don't know.
Yeah, I could take a heat dome for like an hour right now just to warm up a little bit.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe cloud cover.
Yeah, maybe that'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that would warm it. But right now it's not bad. But
not bad.
Not warm.
No. And out on the streets right now, it's been pretty quiet overall. Haven't heard anything going on. But if you're walking, biking, driving, you see something, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
6:15 is the time right now. Well, let's begin with something that is of concern in our community. One of Winnipeg's long-standing not-for-profits is experiencing what they call an unprecedented demand for food from the city's most vulnerable populations. And so last week, in 5 days, Agape Table served a record 4,162 people. And now Agape says their shelves are bare. Jim Steep is the executive director over at Agape Table, and he was in conversation this week with CBC's Faith Fundal.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
You must be surprised that your shelves are bare. What do you make of all of this?
Yes, that's not something that ever happens at Agape Table. Just the numbers have just keep escalating. And usually not that I can ever recall we had to ask for food before, but we could use a little bit of help now for sure.
When you say we need some help, contextualize this for us. I know I described it as bare shelves. How would you describe it?
Just that now, like last week, like you said, over 800 guests in the morning in 4 hours. And we like to hand out as much food as we possibly can. I mean, we're always in every lunch kit that goes out the door. There's a bowl of soup, there's a sandwich, usually a pastry, a bar, some kind of fruit, and a water or some kind of beverage. And yeah, we're just short on those things. I've never seen it like that, at least not in recent memory.
What's your sense from staff about why you have so many folks, or why this need is where it is?
I think it's just kind of been escalating as we go along. I mean, back in 2019, we served 85,000 guests. And then in 21, it's all the way up to 125. And last year, 155,000. So it just keeps going up. Additionally, there's also people who are just, their dollar just won't stretch. I mean, you've got rent, you've got utilities, you've got food, and the dollar just isn't going as far as it did before.
Have you had to turn people away?
We haven't, fortunately. We've never been closed a day and always been able to serve everybody who came to the door. So, but it's it's getting tough to every day. It's like 800 sandwiches, 800 bowls of soup. It's tough, but we're doing it. We're getting it done.
What do you need the most of right now?
I would say sandwich fillings would probably be one thing. Sandwich fillings, as it gets hotter, we need water. We always need mustard, jam, some kind of bars, granola bars or whatever. Those are really helpful.
I mean, when you look at the numbers, and you described that already, how concerned are you that upward trend is going to get to a point that it may be unmanageable for Agape?
Yeah, that's definitely in the front of my mind right now. Is if the numbers keep going up, how are we going to continue to serve? I mean, luckily we have fantastic volunteers. We have a core of maybe 20 volunteers that are here most days, and we have companies and groups coming in for team building days and that sort of thing. So we couldn't run the place without at least 30 volunteers a day. And fortunately, if they keep coming and we keep trying to bring in food from wherever we can, we'll get the job done. But yeah, it's a bit scary for sure, the rise in the numbers.
I mean, we've talked before about asking for help, but not in this kind of way. I don't want to say a panic, but the seriousness of your ask is a whole lot higher than our usual conversations throughout the year.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a bit scary to think about how we're going to, how we even store the food that we need. Yeah, it's tough, and like you said, it's not like a usual interview that we do where we say about our number of guests and everything like this. This is getting up there, over 800 people a day. And the other day we had 924 one morning, and it definitely pushes us to the limit for sure.
How do you even get through those numbers of folks?
It's funny when we'll have a day where it's only 720 guests, say, in a morning. And the staff will go, wow, we only had 720 guests. And then you start thinking about, in 4 hours, 720 people that's still a big number.
Jim, what do you want folks to know about your situation and how they can help?
Just what we're doing. Like a lot of people have heard of Agape Table before, but they don't know exactly what we do or what the kind of numbers that we serve are. And just that we're serving a lot of guests, and caring community, and Agape Table. Agape means unconditional love, and that's what we do at Agape Table every day. And boy, it sure is a fantastic place for myself, especially, and for staff and volunteers to come in every day and be able to help that many people. It's a fantastic place to be.
That's Jim Steep, the executive director of Agape Table, who says they're in dire need of food donations right now. So in conversation there with CBC's Faith Fundal, items can be dropped off at 364 Furby Street anytime between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. And you can call and get information as well. And that number is 204, I'm going to repeat it twice, 204-783-6369. Once again, 204-783-6369. 6369.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
So today they're going to be building on a conversation we had yesterday talking about meningococcal disease. And so we had a whole discussion about how there's been a high number of cases of meningococcal disease in Manitoba this year, higher than we've had in past years, certainly. So yesterday we assessed with the doctor on air, medical officer of health, the risks, the symptoms. And so today there's going to be a build on that in terms of the conversation on the call-in. So stay tuned. We'll tell you more about it through the morning. But remember that they do a different question every day on Radio Noon for the call-in conversation, as you just heard, with Janet between 12:30 and 1 on Radio Noon. And you can always call. Let's say you hear, oh, I want to weigh in, but I'm busy over lunch. You can always call and leave them a message. So it's 788-3797 to do that. Well, next on our show, the U.S. Surgeon General is calling upon Congress to put warning labels on social media platforms like on tobacco. Dr. Vivek Murthy explained the idea this week in an opinion piece in the New York Times newspaper. He said social media is negatively affecting many children and teens in alarming ways. The Surgeon General wrote he's concerned both as a doctor and as a father. Now, here in Winnipeg, we were talking about this yesterday on the show. We had Sophie Theodoro on with us. Sophie is a teacher who says she's been seeing the impacts of social media in her class.
I've seen lots of things, just staying up late, being on their phones, falling asleep in class. I've seen drama unfold on social media, and it's just really it doesn't really serve a purpose for kids that young. I know if I was a kid that young, I would have hoped my parents wouldn't allow me to have a phone, because I mean, those were like the best years of my life, playing outside and being creative with my friends. And it's just really sad to see all these kids already being so addicted to their phones.
Well, Michael Boyes is with us this morning, developmental psychologist associated with the University of Calgary. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So as you heard, we already started looking at this yesterday on our program. So if I might, can we get right into the research? Like, what does research?
Absolutely.
What does the research say about the effects of social media on teens?
Well, so we've got a number of things that have come out of the research. We know that generationally, rates of anxiety and depression and thoughts of suicide have jumped up dramatically, starting in about 2010, which is the point where smartphones in particular became more broadly available to children and teens. We know that spending more than 3 hours a day on social media seems to about double the risks of the development of anxiety and depression. And as of last summer, most recent research, the average amount of time with social media by teenagers is about 4.5 hours a day. So it's over that 3-hour kind of threshold of concern. When research talks to adolescents directly about their experiences with social media, about 50% of them are telling us that they feel uncomfortable sometimes while using social media, and certainly it has negative impact on their general body image. So we're getting a lot of research raising concerns about the impact of social media on children and teens.
I think we need more research about why, and because I've yet to hear sort of definitively. You hear people talk about being on social media for any of us, including teens, can cause you to compare your life to other people's, to start to feel low about yourself if you're watching other people post about things that maybe you don't have or aren't attainable to you for whatever reason. But there have to be a myriad of reasons of why on teenage health social media can have negative impacts.
Absolutely, and I agree entirely. We need a lot more research. What the Surgeon General is saying is while we're waiting for that definitive research to amass, we don't need to be sitting idly by. I think one of the biggest kind of concerns is that the kind of engaging nature of social media. We all kind of contend with it at one level or another. But for kids and teenagers, they're learning how to manage that sort of social engagement, whether it's social media or other kinds of social interaction. And that's why I think we're raising this sort of concern. But it's not even just what's on social media, as we found with other kind of technological advances. It's also what they're not doing as much of as they used to do. So spending more time in social media means less time in face-to-face interaction, which we know is critical for, again, learning about social engagement and managing oneself.
It's difficult to see a way through this when you imagine that generations of young people now, the face-to-face interaction isn't where they built their relationships. They built them online to begin with. So then you end up having to manage something that it's not as simple as getting offline, because all of those critical connections and some of the positive things are all going to live online. Do you think that warnings will work?
Well, I think we certainly have data on the impact of warnings on cigarette packages, suggesting that it had a measurable direct impact on rates of smoking and things like that. But I think the most important thing is that those sorts of labels are kind of triggers to getting people to start thinking a little more about what it is they're doing. And of course, when we're talking about social media with children and teens, it's not just the children and teens themselves that need to be thinking about it, but those around them. So their parents, their teachers. And we're certainly seeing steps being taken. Our Minister of Education here in Alberta just a couple of days ago announced a ban starting this fall on the use of cell phones in classrooms. So we're seeing some steps that are starting to be taken, I think, that are going to at least start moving us in more positive directions.
What do you think of this idea, the warning labels? What was your initial reaction when you heard it?
Well, it sort of kind of had to think about it a little bit. I think as a developmental psychologist, I'm positively inclined towards it. I think it's a start, and we need to be paying a lot more attention to kind of what's built into the social media experience. And so while we're waiting for that additional research, I think it's important to kind of put out there this idea that we need to be thinking about these sorts of things.
Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
If you want to weigh in on this, 788-3205. Michael Boyes, developmental psychologist associated with the University of Calgary.
How do bands create theme songs for TV shows?
Our whole universe was in a hot, dense state.
What happened to that flirtatious coffee couple?
How can you ever thank me?
I'll try and think of something.
And when did one size fits all stop fitting, all?
Ouch!
You have questions, Terry O'Reilly has answers. Ask Terry 2024 on Under the Influence, Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Well, it is 11 degrees in Winnipeg this morning. It's 5 in Brandon and Thompson this morning. In Winnipeg, we'll head for a high of 20 degrees. Right now downtown through our studio window, quite a clear sky, some sun coming through. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live with our team here on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. And about to join our team on air is Christely Ramlicam. We'll talk to her after the news with business details. Today, she has a story about Microsoft, which is now being surpassed as the largest public company in the world. So we're going to find out more about who's made that move. So stay tuned. That is coming up in business news. In addition, a little bit later on the program, I want to highlight a conversation we'll be having. There has been a significant increase in violent crime in Winnipeg, especially over the last 5 years. More than 30%. That's the number that violent crime has risen by in our community, in our city. So that's stats coming from a police report, stats that were released yesterday. It's quite a detailed report. It also looked at youth crime, which has almost doubled year over year. Now, this is the police service's annual report. So we'll talk more about what the stats tell us. We're also going to hear from some homeowners in one part of West Winnipeg, and a Winnipeg youth organization as well is going to be joining us. But if you're up early and thinking about this, just want to know how, if, and or how crime has affected your life, or maybe you're part of the solutions that are happening in the city and trying to help from that front. So you can always reach out to us on our listener lines. Right now, though, it's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, just look at that sun. It is mostly sunny over downtown Winnipeg right now. We're at 11 degrees. It is still feeling chilly, though. A high today of just 20. Tuxedo has made history. The constituency, Tory blue for its entire 4 decades, has just elected an NDP MLA. CBC reporter Bartley Kivas now with results from yesterday's by-election.
Carla Compton has just become the first person other than a progressive conservative to win an election in Tuxedo.
We have proven that there is no such thing as a safe PC seat in Manitoba.
Tuxedo's been PC territory since it was created in 1981. It's only been represented by 2 MLAs, former Manitoba Premier Gary Filmon and former Premier Heather Stephenson. Stephenson resigned her seat earlier this year in the wake of a 2023 election defeat by Wab Kinew and his NDP. For the PCs, this is another setback, but defeated candidate Lawrence Pinsky suggested he will run again.
What do Ronald Reagan, Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, and Lawrence Pinsky have in common? We lost the first time.
The Tuxedo victory increases the NDP's majority in the Manitoba legislature to 35 seats. The PCs have 21 and faced more political uncertainty over the next 10 months. They won't choose a permanent leader until April 2025. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg community group worries proposed funding cuts could lead to children going hungry. The Spence Neighborhood Association is among the groups arguing against a plan to cut $2.1 million from the city's community grant program. Part of the grant it receives goes towards a meal program that feeds children and others in need. Chef and kitchen manager Samantha Harrison prepares 150 to 200 meals every day. She hopes the city reconsiders.
It's super important because it feeds people in our community every day who need to be fed. Food insecurity is a huge issue in the city and all across Canada. It's super important to provide programs for people who are facing that.
Council casts a final vote on the proposed changes to the grant program at its meeting next week. An RCMP officer has admitted policies were not followed the day a 54-year-old man died in a police holding cell in the Pas. John Edaway Capo died after another detainee's leg fell on his neck, potentially smothering him. The second day of the inquest into his 2019 death began with testimony from an RCMP inspector. Christopher Massart told court Edaway Capo should not have gone 40 minutes without being checked by someone. He said it is RCMP policy to physically check all inmates every 15 minutes. He told the court someone should have seen the leg on Edaway Capo's neck and they should have gotten him help. The inquest continues today. Neepawa RCMP are searching for 2 missing teens. 14-year-old Henry Galt and 16-year-old Danis Martin were reported missing last night. Police believe they may be in Minnedosa or the surrounding area. Galt is 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, with long hair in a ponytail. He was last seen wearing a black hoodie with white art on the front and sleeves, with black pants and a navy and black baseball cap. Martin is described as, for her part, Martin is described as being 5 feet tall and petite with mid-length reddish hair. She was last seen wearing a black zip-up with a gray hoodie and flannel pajama pants. If you know them, if you've seen them or know anything about where they might be, you're asked to contact police or Crime Stoppers. A New Democrat MP from Vancouver says the House of Commons must find a way to reveal the names of MPs who appeared in a foreign interference report. Jenny Kwan says the issue is damaging the reputation of all sitting members.
Revealing which member of parliament, former or present, is a willing participant of foreign interference activities would not only have the effect of deterring this kind of behavior, it will send a clear message to those foreign states that this will not be able to continue.
Kwan raised the issue late yesterday as a question of privilege in the House, but Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc says revealing names would violate national security law. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is promising full support for Russia's war in Ukraine. Kim is meeting today with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Pyongyang. Huge Huge crowds lined the street to greet Putin's motorcade, waving flowers and North Korean and Russian flags. The two countries are trying to expand their economic and military cooperation and show a united front against Washington. Putin's visit comes amid growing concerns about an arms arrangement in which North Korea provides Russia with badly needed munitions for the war in Ukraine in exchange for economic assistance and technology. Well, bringing it back to Edmonton.
Connor McDavid has done it again, and this one's going back to Edmonton.
Connor McDavid with 2 goals and 2 assists as the Oilers beat the Florida Panthers 5-3 last night. McDavid not taking all the credit, saying it was a great performance from the team. Now Game 6 will be played, as you heard there, in Edmonton on Friday. Florida still leads the series 3-2. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I can't even talk about it, right? You feel like if you dare to talk about it, it'll change the trajectory of what's going on in that series.
You don't want to be a jinx, right?
Yeah. Well, just watch and see what happens. Thank you, Heather. Take care. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Heather's back before the top of the clock with more headlines, and she's with us through the morning. All right, let's get into what's happening in the weather forecast. Abby actually popped out. We've got a video we're going to put up. If you're on YouTube, you'll get to see this. This is actually before the sky dried out, this video that you shot. Because right now, if people head out into Winnipeg, they're going to find a blue sky and they're going to find some sunshine. But you shot this video and the streets were still a little bit wet, a little bit damp this morning, and it's going to be coming up as you give the weather. There it is right there.
There it is. Look
Yeah.
at the sun making its appearance there.
Yeah, the puddle's just in the side.
The puddle's just in the side. We're getting this should dry up by maybe 9 o'clock.
What's the high today going to be?
The
Abby,
high
with
for
this?
today, 20. So we're heading to 20. Right now in the city, it is 11 degrees. We're already seeing the sunny conditions you're seeing on our YouTube page. Greet us, sunny skies. A slight chance of showers later this morning. And the clouds will gradually clear with that cloudy conditions we saw earlier this morning, leading to a high of 20 later today with a gentle westerly breeze. Now, tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with light winds. And tomorrow, we're going to anticipate a sunny day with temperatures reaching 25 by the afternoon. Heading west to Brandon now, it is 5 degrees and sunny. We will see sunny conditions for that part of the province today. And then we'll get a transition to a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon period with a high of 20. Thompson is currently at 5, mostly cloudy at the moment. A peak of sunny appearance already making its way, but it's still cloudy at the moment. We get a 60% chance of showers later this morning. Despite that, the temperatures will climb to 14. For the north in Churchill, it is 4 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Expect cloudy conditions throughout the day, a 60% chance of showers and a high of 9. Dauphin is currently sitting at 7 degrees under clear skies. Today we'll start sunny, then we'll see a transition to a mix of sun and clouds by midday. There's a slight chance of showers and even a risk of thunderstorm later in the afternoon, and temperatures peaking at 20. Gimli is currently at 9 degrees. The sun is trying to make its break also in that part of the province. For the Lake region today, it's going to be cloudy, a slight chance of morning showers, then clearing by the late morning periods, and we'll see a high of 20. Steinbach and Maurice hovering around 9 and 10 degrees. Today's forecast calls for cloudy conditions and a slight chance of morning showers also, and the highs for both regions will get to 20.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
So currently in Winnipeg, once again, 11 degrees this morning. Corey Funk, what are you doing here? What's going on?
Whoa. What am I doing? I think I'm
I like
at work.
to shake it up a little bit sometimes.
One of the things I'm doing is keep an eye on the commute, and so far it's been pretty quiet. I can tell you though, because I've been wondering it myself, if your commute takes you all down westbound Portage between Lipton and Wall Street there's those 2 far left lanes that have been closed for a while for sewer work that is expected to end on Sunday. So hopefully things go smoother for you then, but just giving you a bit of an end date, the light at the end of the tunnel to look forward to. But if you do see something else going on out there, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
I think I dare you to do the whole all of your reports for the commute this morning, like in the voice of someone at the X. You know? Do you want to go faster? No, don't. There's a delay.
I'll work on that.
Corey's face. He's like, move on, Marcusa. No one understands what you're doing.
Yeah.
788-3093. I actually have the X on my mind, partly because of the forecast, because usually we have the annual joke, right? Oh, it's raining. The X must be on. But not this year because it just continues to rain and rain on us in Manitoba. So, but the X is on. Right now, it's time to turn our attention at 20 minutes to 7 o'clock to business news. Crystal Lee Ramlakan is here via Zoom. Hi, Crystal Lee.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So Microsoft is being surpassed now as the largest public company in the world. Who's done it?
Well, NVIDIA has become the world's most valuable company. That happened yesterday, dethroning the tech heavyweight. So NVIDIA's high-end processors are playing a central role in the scramble to dominate artificial intelligence technology. So the company engineers advanced chips, systems, and software for AI. And its stock has nearly tripled so far this year, bringing its market value to more than $3.3 trillion. And the surge reflects a Wall Street frenzy driven by optimism about emerging AI technology. NVIDIA's rally has lifted the S&P 500 and NASDAQ to record highs. However, some investors worry that optimism about AI could evaporate if there are signs of a slowdown in spending on the technology. So tech giants Microsoft, Meta, and Google owner Alphabet are competing to build their own AI computing capabilities. But NVIDIA has consistently breezed past Wall Street's lofty expectations for revenue and profit, with demand for its graphics processors outpacing supply as companies rush to embed AI applications.
Let's move to news about another tech company, actually, Amazon. They're introducing a new way to return orders. Is that right?
Yes, so you can now make returns at office supply store Staples, which has 298 locations. So you can set up the return through your Amazon account, then bring eligible items to Staples to be packed and shipped back. Doug Stevens is a retail expert and the founder of Retail Profit. He says Kohl's department stores in the U.S. are doing the same thing.
The strategy behind it was really, I think, two things. It was A, just to drive traffic, and B, I think there was some belief that it could actually attract a different kind of customer. Then there's always the possibility that someone may make a purchase while they're returning the product. Now, I can say for the Kohl's experiment, I don't know that it was exactly wildly successful, but, you know, I appreciate the fact that Staples is really facing a difficult problem in the sense that a lot of the things that they sell are very available online.
Now, Amazon says it has more than 4,000 drop-off points across the country, including at Purolator, Canada Post, and Couche-Tard. And this new partnership comes months after the Ontario government announced plans to open some Service Ontario locations in Staples stores. So those are places where you can get like your license, do kind of admin stuff like that. So looks like Staples is really trying to diversify itself.
And finally, before we look at the numbers this morning, you have another piece of information, the latest development about the future of Red Lobster in Canada.
Yes, so an Ontario court has now approved a sales process for the seafood restaurant chain, which is operating under court protection from creditors. So this comes after a U.S. court approved the sales process for the company, which launched Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings last month. So court filings say the steps are meant to preserve Red Lobster's business in Canada and the employment of 2,000 workers at 27 restaurants across the country. A stalking horse bid has also been approved. So this is when an offer to buy a bankrupt firm or its assets is arranged ahead of an auction. A floor price is typically set for the assets, and the documents say the bid will give lenders a chance to sell the company's assets in a way that maximizes their value and helps them avoid the risk of being sold for an unreasonably low price. Now, dozens of locations in the U.S. have already closed, though, after the American portion of the company filed for bankruptcy protection, which a Canadian court agreed to recognize last month.
So what is happening in the markets?
In Europe, markets are shifting lower. Germany, the UK, and France are all down. In Asia, markets are mostly on the rise. Japan is up, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is up. Oil is down 8 cents to 81.49 US per barrel. Gold is down $4.60 to $2,342.30 US per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.05 of a cent to 72.95 cents US.
All right, Crystal Ramlichan, we will talk to you again tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Via Zoom with business news. That is Crystal Ramlichan. 6:45 a.m. is your time right now on your Wednesday morning. It's funny, hey? I had Monday off. I happened to take a day off, and then sometimes you lose track of what day it is, but we're already at midweek here. 11 degrees in Winnipeg. It's partly cloudy. Our high today is going to be 20 degrees, and we have some beautiful clearing out there already this morning in Winnipeg. Staying clear tonight, and then sunny into tomorrow also. Well, up next on the show, a little bit of music this morning from Jade Turner. This tune's called That Wind. A lot of talent coming out of Selkirk, Manitoba, huh? That's Jade Turner. Her tune's called That Wind.
Friday is National Indigenous Peoples Day. What questions do you have about reconciliation in our province? Author and University of Manitoba Indigenous Knowledge Professor Neegon Sinclair will be our guest and can answer your questions. Call our listener line now and leave us a message at 204-788-3733. 3797.
Time right now is 10 to 7 on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being with us this morning. How's it going out there? June can be a crazy busy month, especially if you've got students in the house, of course. You have young people going to school, getting restless and ready to wrap up. We're getting into it now. Or maybe it's grad season for you in your home, which is always so exciting. I love this time of year, just the promise and the hope of what might come next through the eyes of young people. It is not bad if you're grads today. High of 20 degrees. You can see there's already some clearing this morning in Winnipeg, which is good. We still do have a 30% chance we'll see some more showers, but they're likely behind us for the day. It's going to stay clear into tonight and sunny through tomorrow as well, as we've been mentioning. So right now in Winnipeg, it is 11 degrees. Now, it is chilly this morning, so it may not feel like it's time to talk about heat quite yet in Manitoba. But if you look further ahead, actually, Monday's forecast for Winnipeg says 30 degrees. And you should be happy if you can sweat, if you have the ability, because if you don't, it can be dangerous once the extreme heat sets in. According to British Columbia's Coroner's Service, almost 600 people died in 2021 as a result of a heat wave in that province between June 25th and July 1st of last year. And you've been hearing the reports all this week about globally what's going to be happening with heat and the extreme concerns here across Canada as well. Now, on our medical column today, Dr. Raj Bhardwaj has a bit of a primer on preparation and what symptoms to keep in mind.
Good morning, Marcy.
So what is it that makes hot weather, Dr. Bhardwaj, dangerous for our health?
So basically, the hot weather, the heat, increases the risk that your body has to operate outside its usual parameters. And our bodies are very finely tuned to be able to operate within a temperature range of a few degrees. We have a lot of biological mechanisms that work to keep us in that range. And if you've ever had your phone just shut down suddenly because it got too hot, that's sort of the same thing, except the consequences of your body shutting down are a lot more serious, of course. But just like your phone, your body is always generating some heat. It's using energy, it's moving muscles. Even digesting food creates some heat that then we have to manage. And if it's not too hot out, we lose that heat into the cooler air around us. But that stops working if the air gets too warm, and especially if it gets too humid. Because the most reliable way to keep our core body temperature stable is by sweating. Right? Humans are better at sweating than any other animal. But when the water or the sweat evaporates from your skin, it takes the heat with it. It cools the skin, and the blood that runs just under your skin cools down as well. And then that circulates to your core. It grabs some heat from there and moves it back to the skin. It's like a complex biological radiator. But evaporation depends on the air being relatively cool and dry compared to your body. So if it gets too hot or too humid, then sweating doesn't work because the sweat doesn't evaporate fast enough to cool the circulating blood, and then your core body temperature starts to rise. And it doesn't have to rise much from 37 degrees, which is, average body temperature. If it hits like 41, 42 degrees, you can start to get into real trouble.
Now, is that when people get into problems with heat exhaustion or heat stroke even?
Yeah, so heat exhaustion, heat stroke, it's part of a continuum, right? So it's not just sort of, a body temperature measurement. I sort of think of the symptoms of heat exhaustion as being my body is suffering, but my brain is still working. And then heat stroke means that, brain's not working properly either. So, when you think of heat exhaustion, think of the symptoms, think of like dehydration, think of increased heart rate and faster breathing. And all of that happens because you're losing water through sweat, but your brain is still working okay. But as it gets worse, then you start to get into heat stroke. Your brain starts to be affected as well with symptoms like worsening headache and dizziness and confusion. And if you can't cool your core body temperature down, eventually your brain starts to shut down, just like your overheating phone.
Are some people more prone to heat-related problems?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can sort of break it down into sort of biologic factors, things that have to do with your body, and then environmental or social factors, right? Things that have to do with you not being able to escape the heat, basically. So for biologic factors, think of people who can't sweat as much or as effectively. So that includes babies, that includes pregnant people. That can include older people who might have lower sweat production, might be more prone to dehydration, might also not be able to tolerate their heart and lungs trying to ramp up to dissipate the heat. But also can include people on medications that might feel that these people are like, yeah, I know, I'm perfectly healthy. I just take these meds for my blood pressure or for my depression or my ADHD or something. But all of those types of meds can also impact your body's ability to deal with heat. So partly by, maybe by changing how your blood circulates, like if it's a blood pressure medicine or a heart medicine, might be because it impacts the ability of your brain to actually sense and respond to temperature automatically, like some antidepressants and ADHD meds. The list of meds that can change how your body deals with heat is impressively long. So might want to talk to a pharmacist or your doctor or even a health advice line about that. And then in terms of the sort of environmental or social factors, think of folks who can't get in from the heat or can't get out of their hot apartments or something like that because they're socially isolated.
What should people do if they think that they or someone else is suffering from heat-related health issues?
I think the first step is to get out of the heat and humidity if possible, whether that's into the shade or into a cool air-conditioned place would be even better. And don't hesitate to call for help. People can be pretty unwell, and depending on sort of how far down that road of heat exhaustion to heat stroke that they are, it can take quite a bit of work to get them back from that. So it's not unreasonable to call 911. And while you wait for help to arrive, you can start to cool people down with things like cold, wet cloths on their neck and, in their armpits, things like that. You can store wet face cloths in the fridge if it gets really hot and humid. That works really well to put those on. You can have them sip some cool fluids as long as they're not already having nausea or vomiting. If they are having nausea and vomiting, don't try to give them more. They're just going to barf it up. But if they aren't, then, cold water is a good start. Eventually, we might add some fluids with salts in there, like rehydrating drinks. For kids, popsicles and watermelon are a fantastic treat that you should stock up on and have ready for the hot weather.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dr. Bardwaj.
My pleasure.
That's our host, Dr. Raj Bardwaj. We have our medical column every Wednesday morning here on the show on Information Radio. And I know it might not feel like the time of, this morning at this time of day to be talking about hot weather. It might not feel very timely. But we are expecting a high of 31 degrees by next week in Winnipeg. So it's going to be, it will get hot. First day of summer, of course, officially is tomorrow. Right now, though, we're just partly cloudy and 11, the high 20, and had some showers early this morning. That should be cleared off by now. Clear into tonight, low 10, tomorrow sunshine and a nice high of 25. On the commute this morning, if you see any problems, whether you're walking, bussing, whether you're on your bike or maybe you're driving, give us a call. And that could be in the city of Winnipeg or outside. Obviously, the Louise Bridge is going to be closed until June 27th. That's the big one. Other than that, call us 788-3093 to update your commute. We'll get into what's coming up in the next hour of the show in a moment. Right now, let's turn our attention to news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a history-making night in Tuxedo. For the first time ever, voters in the constituency have elected an NDP MLA. Carla Compton, a nurse, is Tuxedo's MLA-elect. She beat the PC's Lawrence Pinsky by a margin of just over 600 votes. An RCMP officer has admitted policies were not followed the day a 54-year-old man died in a police holding cell in the Pas. John Edoe-Capo died after another detainee's leg fell on his neck, potentially smothering him. The second day of the inquest began with testimony from an RCMP inspector, and we'll hear some of what he said coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, Heather just mentioned the NDP MLA-elect, Carla Compton in Tuxedo. She will be in studio with us in the next hour of the show. She'll be here live. In addition, right after 7 o'clock, shingles is a painful infection causing a rash with blisters. It can spread on your body. It can be prevented with a vaccine, but that shot is not covered by Manitoba Health. We're going to hear from some people who say that should change. And at 7:40, we're going to introduce you to a chef from Vancouver who has been in town. His specialty is making 5-course dinners. His secret ingredient is cooking with cannabis. We're going to hear all about the work that goes into cooking with weed and why he does it. So stay tuned. That's all coming up on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC. Stay tuned. World Report is next.
Yeah, we're seeing an association with a doubling of risk of anxiety and depression symptoms.
The U.S. Surgeon General wants health effect warnings on social media platforms like what's on cigarette packages. And some young tech activists say even more is needed to protect their generation from increasing harm. It's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Rents in this country are soaring to record heights, and many people say finding a family-sized unit they can afford seems impossible. Researchers say it is time for provinces to rethink their policies. More people are forced to leave pricey urban areas. The CBC's Yvette Brand reports.
Callie Ward's sons make their beds in their Edmonton rental that took 2 years to find.
It was really challenging.
Her family of 5 moved to BC in 2022 following her husband, who found work framing high-rises to help build more housing. But high rental costs forced them out, first from Victoria, then Port Alberni, forcing them back to Alberta.
I was not expected to meet another housing crisis here when we got here.
This family isn't alone. Alexandra Flynn, the director of the Housing Research Collaborative at UBC, says a lack of family-sized rentals is taking a huge toll on people.
So there's enormous social cost to having this mismatch.
A new interactive tool created by CBC that allows people to search communities for affordable rentals has revealed some cities have 0 vacancies. Wendell Cox, author of the International Housing Affordability Survey, says it's time Canada rethinks restrictive land use policies.
The time has come to recognize that poverty is more important to deal with than urban sprawl.
I felt like I was letting my children down because they don't have a room. They didn't have their own safe space.
It took a year living with family, but Callie Ward and her 4 children finally found a $2,600 per month 5-bedroom in Edmonton they can afford for now. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
The new CBC online tool Yvette mentioned aims to help Canadians find the most affordable places in the country to rent and potential availability. Just search CBC News Rental Tool. Newcomers to Ontario say they are struggling to pay for car insurance. Many insurance companies do not factor in their previous driving experience, and they're paying hundreds of dollars a month. As Lisa Shing reports, it is an extra burden at a time when the cost of living is already high.
This is not actually fair for us.
Since coming from Afghanistan 2 years ago, Hamid Yousafzai says he has been struggling to pay his car insurance, currently $450 a month.
So I have to work in here, finding my expenses here to support whole family over there, and also support to pay the insurance as well.
Yousafzai drove for 7 years before moving to Canada, but says no insurance company he checked with would factor in that experience into his monthly rate. He needs a car to commute to work because public transit in the Niagara region where he lives isn't reliable.
Well, I think it's an injustice.
This isn't just an issue in Ontario. CBC News looked at the rules of various companies in different provinces. Anila Amar, CEO of the Centre for Newcomers in Calgary, says high car insurance is a big problem in Alberta too.
You basically have to decide, am I going to pay for this car in order to get to work to make the money, or am I going to, pay for food?
But for many insurance companies, there's no way to assess someone's risk of getting into a collision if they haven't driven in Canada, according to insurance broker Daniel Ivans.
They're very much in the dark when it comes to how they can assess the risk because they don't understand necessarily what rules, regulations, and record keeping are like overseas.
Amar says insurance companies should lower premiums for newcomers because that would help them and the economy. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada's below-target defence spending will be a sore spot. The NATO Defence Secretary General will visit Ottawa today. Jens Stoltenberg is expected to raise the issue when he meets with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But the government is defending its stance. It says the Department of National Defence already has more money than it can spend. The CBC's Murray Brewster has the details.
I think inevitably we will go to 2%.
Defense Minister Bill Blair putting the best face on what could be an awkward visit by NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. New data published by the Military Alliance shows Canada is now among 8 other nations that do not meet the NATO spending target of 2% of GDP. Canada is expected to hit 1.37% this year. But significantly, it has not produced a plan, as requested, to get to 2%.
It is fairly superficial to only speak about 2% without examining how the funding is going to be spent in the short and the long term.
Treasury Board President Anita Anand defending the reluctance to articulate a plan for 2%, noting the Defense Department has trouble spending its budget each year, mostly because it doesn't have enough staff to properly manage complex procurement projects.
Why would we continue to fill the books with additional money if that money can't get out the doors?
That is a very good point, one that has been repeated around Ottawa for over a decade in not one, but two independent studies which warned both the current Liberal government and the previous Conservative government that more staff were needed. The latest defense policy promises to hire more procurement staff to address the shortfall critical to meeting the NATO goal, but that will only happen next year. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
It is a united stand against Washington. The leaders of North Korea and Russia have signed a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement. Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un signed the deal after meeting today in Pyongyang. They spoke for 2 hours. Kim pledged his full support for Russia's war in Ukraine. Tens of millions of dollars worth of stolen gold is still missing. 12 men have been charged in connection to a heist last year at Pearson Airport, but the case is far from solved. The CBC's Jonathan Gatehouse has been asking his own questions about where that gold could be.
Saveri Bazaar in Mumbai is one of the biggest gold markets in the world. Experts call it the global epicenter for smuggling, a place where few questions are asked and a large quantity of stolen gold could easily disappear.
The cultural affinity we have towards gold makes gold a very, very attractive commodity for smuggling.
Najib Shah used to be in charge of India's anti-smuggling efforts.
And India's coastal borders are extremely challenging.
Welcome to Peel Regional Police Airport Division.
The theft of 6,600 gold bars from Toronto's Pearson Airport in April 2023 made international headlines. As CBC News recently reported, one of the heist suspects is in India and planning to surrender to police. Another man was arrested when he returned home from India in early May, all fueling speculation that the gold ended up on the subcontinent. Peel police won't comment on that or address other gaps in the case, raising questions about whether they have really solved the crime, a brazen theft that they say was all about turning gold into guns for criminals.
400 kilos of gold is a lot of gold.
David Sood is an expert on how criminal organizations use gold to finance their activities. He says the link between the stolen gold and gun running sounds dubious.
Unless you are arming a militia, that is an awful lot of guns.
Peel police say their investigation is ongoing and that the full picture will have to wait until the suspects go to trial. Jonathan Gatehouse, CBC News, Toronto.
A baseball legend has died. That is the sound of the infamous catch made by Willie Mays. The New York Giants center fielder made one of the best plays in Major League Baseball history. During the 1954 World Series in New York, Mays caught an over-the-shoulder hit from Cleveland. The Giants went on to win the series. Mays is considered to be one of the greatest ball players ever. He was also a member of the Negro Leagues. The 93-year-old died on Tuesday. He and the league are being honored tomorrow at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama, home to Mays' Negro League team, the Birmingham Black Barons. Americans are also celebrating a national holiday. Juneteenth marks the end of slavery in many states. It was on June 19th, 1865, when the Emancipation Proclamation was ordered to be enforced in Texas. That order came 2 years after the proclamation was signed into law, meaning people who were enslaved went years before learning of their freedom. Juneteenth is considered the longest-running holiday in Black communities in the U.S. The holiday is also recognized across parts of Mexico, where Black Seminoles sought to escape the threat of slavery. The descendants of Native American and Black people, known in Mexico as the Muskogos, have been celebrating Juneteenth for more than 150 years. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live downtown where the sunshine has started to stream into our Wednesday morning. Thank you for making us part of your day today. Appreciate having you along with the show. This hour on the program, we're going to talk about shingles. Seniors are at higher risk of complications from the painful condition, but a seniors advocacy group says more than half of Manitoba seniors aren't getting vaccinated against shingles. And in a lot of cases, that is because of cost. We're going to talk with someone from Pharmacists Manitoba about how that's affecting some people in this province. Also, to a completely different story at 7:40, we're going to talk food. Specifically, you're going to meet a chef from Vancouver whose specialty is making 5-course dinners, and he's recently been in Winnipeg with one of them. His specialty ingredient is cannabis, cooking with cannabis. That's coming up at 7:40. First, though, Heather Wells is in with news from last night and news that's developing in Manitoba this morning. Hi there.
Hi there. Well, a Winnipeg community group worries proposed funding cuts could lead to children in this city going hungry. The Spence Neighborhood Association is among groups arguing against a plan to cut $2.1 million from the city's community grant program. Part of the grant it receives does go towards a meal program that feeds children and others in need. We're going to hear from the association's chef and kitchen manager coming up. And Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew says his party's by-election win in a longtime PC stronghold shows Manitobans are rejecting divisive politics. Carla Compton, a nurse, is Tuxedo's MLA-elect. She won yesterday's by-election in Tuxedo, beating the PC's Lawrence Pinsky by a margin of just over 600 votes. We'll hear more coming up at 6:30.
And she will be in studio with us live, in fact, this hour. So she'll be here at 10 to 8 to talk more about her win last night. So stay tuned for that interview. Right now, Abby Adeyemi, the floor is yours for the forecast.
It's climbing. We are at 12 degrees in the city as we speak. Just look at that sun shining outside. It's mostly sunny over the downtown in Winnipeg. It is still feeling chilly though. We started the morning cloudy. Some clouds will roll in later and there's a slight chance of showers in the forecast. However, that cloud is going to clear up as the morning progresses. Just expect light breeze from the west as the day unfolds, and we're aiming for a high of 20 today. Tonight will be clear initially, then turning partly cloudy as the evening sets in. The wind will also be calm, and then it's going to give us like a light and pleasant night. A sneak peek into tomorrow, Thursday, we're going to start the day sunny. By the afternoon period, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds, and expect that light breeze to stay with us from the south in the afternoon period. We're going to see a high of 25 tomorrow. But right now in Winnipeg, it is 11. Today starts cloudy. We're seeing some sunshine out there, and we're heading to a high of 20.
What are you looking forward to? Tomorrow's the first day of summer. What are you most looking forward to for this summer season?
I'm just going to go lay on the grass. That's just
the simple things.
Yes, just go there.
Corey, you? What are you most looking forward to for the summer season?
And you know what? This is like kind of the first summer where my little dude is like lucid.
Oh.
So he's coming up on 2 years
He's not
old.
an amoeba anymore.
Exactly. So I'm just excited to kind of see summer through his eyes a little bit. We took him to the beach for the first time even a couple of weeks ago, and just like, oh, the beach is pretty cool. Like so many cool things to do. So I'm just excited to do all the summery things with him because it makes it just a lot more fun.
Nice. Well, if you're off today, not too bad. Not summery weather quite yet, but at least some sunshine. How's the commute today?
So far, things are running fairly smoothly. Of course, there's always the construction and things going on. I did look, if you are going down westbound Portage, if you're kind of like, what's the deal? How long is this going to last? Those two left lanes went all the way from about Lipton to Wall Street have been closed for sewer work. That is expected to end on Sunday, if you're wondering. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If you do see something going on, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, shingles and getting it can be a painful experience. The condition can cause a red rash with blisters and sores and soreness. And if you're over 50, you're at higher risk of complications as well. So shingles, though, can be prevented by a vaccine. But in Manitoba, that shot is not covered by healthcare. The seniors advocacy group CanAge says that 60% of Manitoba seniors are not vaccinated against shingles. And one of the main reasons for that is the cost. Joining us to talk about it via Zoom is Tim Smith with Pharmacists Manitoba. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Can we start just first with, I think a lot of us might know someone that's had shingles, and the first thing they say is, it is so painful. What are the actual symptoms of this?
Yeah, for sure. So it starts with things like headache or light sensitivity and builds onto pain, tingling, and itching. Some people may develop dizziness or weakness or changes in their vision, but it's really known for that rash on the torso that becomes like small fluid-filled blisters. If it occurs on the face, it can threaten eyesight, and it also can cause nerve pain, some of which can last for days, weeks, or even months after the shingles rash resolves.
Does it start right away, like boom, you've got this big rash, or does it actually start maybe with one spot and then spread?
It really starts usually with that headache or the light sensitivity. Those are some of the first signs, and you wouldn't necessarily know that shingles is what's coming next. But then, yeah, the rash rapidly develops, starting with a few blisters, and then boom, it goes from there.
How long does it last?
It depends. So ideally, someone, as soon as they notice the symptoms and think it might be shingles, should be seeking health care, and it can get prescribed antiviral medications that can help get it under control. And with that, treatment is usually for about 7 days or so. So you can get it under control quickly, but that requires access to health care.
What does the pain feel like? Is it? Do people describe it as like a sharp pain, an acute pain that can be helped with something topical like a blister might? Or is it more deeply into your, like a nerve pain, as you said?
Yeah, it's a type of nerve pain. And so people often use words such as burning, throbbing, or stabbing to describe it. And so like over-the-counter pain medications can be helpful, but sometimes people need something a little bit stronger for that.
How does it affect, we mentioned that seniors are at higher risk of getting shingles. How might it affect the elderly population differently than younger adults?
Well, it is people who are over 50 who are at risk of it. Basically, what shingles is a reactivation of the virus that causes chickenpox. So for those of us who had chickenpox when we were younger, after that resolved, the virus actually lies dormant in our nerve cells for many years, but our immune system is protecting us against it. And as we age, once we cross that 50-year-old threshold, our immune system is weakened to the point where it can reactivate. And so 1 in 3 Canadians over 50 will get shingles, and by age 85, 1 in 2 people will experience it. And those who are on the older part of that spectrum are more likely to have serious consequences with it.
Serious consequences like what?
I just, the more significant pain potential for the nerve pain that lasts long beyond the actual shingles rash. If it experiences on the face, then potential threats to sight, things like that.
How much does it cost to get a shot to prevent shingles?
Yeah, so the vaccine that we have for shingles in Canada is one of the most effective vaccines on the market with better than 90% protection against shingles. And it is a 2-dose series. So the combined cost for the 2 doses is between $350 and $400 in Manitoba.
Between $350 and $400. And if you can pay that, you can just walk in and request to get the shingles vaccination. Is that right?
You can in every other province, but not in Manitoba. So interestingly, the shingles vaccine does not require a prescription technically in order to access it. However, if you wanted your pharmacist to administer it, we do need a prescription from a doctor or a nurse practitioner. And this is something that Pharmacists Manitoba has been advocating for, to allow pharmacists to be able to prescribe or dispense the shingles vaccine and then directly administer it to someone. So right now you need to go see your doctor and then come to the pharmacy, or see the pharmacy and take the vaccine to your doctor's office.
Why are you advocating for that?
It's just about convenience. We know that there are struggles in accessing primary care everywhere in Canada, but very acutely here in Manitoba. And so, having convenience for people in accessing healthcare to be able to get the right care at the right time, at the right place that's convenient for them is really important.
So we've been talking about people that can afford it, but what is your response to hearing what CanAge is talking about, that they've said 60% of Manitoba seniors aren't vaccinated, and they are citing cost as one of the main reasons, as I've said?
Yeah, so we have seen that other jurisdictions across Canada have begun to introduce publicly funded programs for the shingles vaccine. So right now, 6 provinces or territories across Canada provide funding for the vaccine for certain age segments of the population, as well as certain federal programs such as non-insured health benefits and the Veterans Affairs. And we would like to see something like this in place for Manitoba, so the Manitoba seniors can also be protected against shingles.
How long has this been a concern? Like, how long have you been trying to sort of change things like for Manitobans?
Well, as the evidence strengthens on just how good this vaccine is, I think that the business case becomes a lot stronger right now. So, there was a recent meta-analysis looking at studies from across North America, Europe, and Asia that found the shingles vaccine to be cost-effective when compared to not vaccinating. So, although there is a significant cost to this vaccine, and we always have to be mindful of protecting, the public purse, because that's all of our tax dollars, we do see now that increasing evidence suggests that this is cost-effective.
And just last, is there a way for people to prevent getting shingles, or how do people get it?
It really is the reactivation of that chickenpox virus. So for those of us who are born and grew up previous to having an effective chickenpox vaccine, there is the potential for shingles to happen. It is lying dormant in our nerve cells, and not everybody will have that reactivation occur. But as I said, 1 in 3 people over 50 and 1 in 2 by age 85. So at that point, really, the shingles vaccine is the most evidence-based, means of protecting it. And what I will say is, in my practice, I often hear from people who come in when they do get shingles, and they will say, "Man, I really wish I got that vaccine." And so, for those who are fortunate enough to have private drug coverage or the financial means to pay for it, please, I do encourage you to do so. But many people don't have those resources, and for that, so we want to advocate for public funding.
Thank you very much for being with us via Zoom this morning, Tim Smith. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That is Tim Smith with us, pharmacy practice advisor for Pharmacists Manitoba. Now, in an email, a spokesperson for the health minister said to CBC, quote, "Shingles can be a painful experience with some potentially serious complications. Our government is always listening to evolving public health and clinical expertise on how to best protect Manitobans from shingles and other diseases, and will continue to reassess coverage as we learn more information." End quote. So that's the full statement that we received from a spokesperson for the health minister in Manitoba. It is 7:22 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. or on the app. We've got new music this morning from Montreal's Bobby Bazzini. This tune's called Hometown. It's 12 degrees in our hometown this morning. Lots of sunshine in downtown Winnipeg. Thanks for being with us on 89.3 FM.
Grown together, but there's something missing. See the sun way from you said it's you different. Ooh, and the lavender like haze. Ooh, what I do just for your gaze. Take me to your old town, falling for you were so deep. Close my eyes and follow you back to where you came from. Take me to your old town, falling for you were so deep. Close my eyes and follow. back to where you came from.
Oh, I dig his voice. That was Montreal's Bobby Bazzini and Hometown. He's got that gravelly thing going on. His new EP is called Stone of June, and it is out now. It is 7:26 a.m. on 89.3. It's 12 degrees in Winnipeg. Traffic's moving fine this Wednesday morning. Some sunshine downtown. And up next on the show, if you're a regular listener, you know it's time for morning sports. And this morning, Claude Faig is in for Scott Regier with sports. Hello to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, but I'm probably not as good as Oilers fans, Claude, because, wow, man, on the brink of elimination last night in Florida, their captain steps up and saves the day again. It's been quite a ride the last couple games here.
That's true, Marcy. You know, the Oilers scoring looked like sludge in the first 3 games of the Stanley Cup final, but the Oil have looked slick in the past 2, potting a baker's dozen. Who else but their all-world captain, Connor McDavid, coming through again last night with 2 goals and a highlight reel helper. Part of another 4-point night for McDavid, who not only dragged the Panthers back to Alberta, he did it while putting his own team on his back. Some nervous minutes in the third before 97 put the game away into the empty net for a 5-3 Oilers win, leaving his teammates full of confidence heading back home, and defenseman Matthias Ekholm in awe of his captain's latest feat.
What have I not seen from him? That's probably the question, no? Just puts us on his back. The bigger the moment, the bigger performance he puts on. Like, we're on the brink of elimination, and he puts up 4 points 2 games in a row, right? Like, that's just him in a nutshell. He just wants to be the guy. He is the guy, and to me, he's the best in the world.
And Marcy, the teams and media will once again make the nearly 6-hour flight back to oil country. And if possible, it promises to be an even more raucous Rogers Place in Edmonton for Game 6 on Friday night.
I can't even imagine how loud it's going to be in that game.
Well, you guys have had some great. You've had some great crowds in Winnipeg when things really get heated, and so yeah, you can only imagine and try to. Pretend to know how good it's going to be, right?
Totally. And live a little
And you wish you were
vicariously.
there. Yeah,
we do, Claude. All right, let's talk about one of the greatest and most iconic players in baseball history, and news today that he's passed away.
Yeah, that's true, Marcy. When you talk about baseball immortals, names like Ruth, Aaron, and Mantle are among the elite. But for many, Willie Mays was not only in that class, but may have been a notch above. Mays, known as the Say Hey Kid, was a combination of speed and power during his time with the Giants, both in New York and San Francisco, before closing out his Hall of Fame career in New York with the Mets. A fabulous career that included 660 home runs, 2 National League MVPs, and a World Series win, earning Mays 24 All-Star appearances. Mays passed away yesterday at the age of 93, beloved by countless baseball fans worldwide, and by former players, including Bob Melvin, a former Major League catcher who now manages the Giants.
You know, I grew up watching games at Candlestick Park and loved baseball, you know, because of Willie Mays. I talked to him when I got the job. I called him and talked to him for a while, and he was great. The fact that he even remembers me, to me, was an honor, but he was talking about my career and how happy he was to have me here again, and, you know, knew I played before, and it was just an honor to talk to him.
And, you know, further proof of Mays' impact on the game, in 2017, the Major League Baseball World Series MVP award was renamed the Willie Mays World Series MVP Award.
And finally this morning in sports, some Canadian athletes are still scrambling to find a spot for the Paris Olympics, including a track star with a pretty stellar resume.
Well, that's true, Marcy. You know, the Summer Olympics are around the corner, a culmination for athletes of their determination and hard work that will be on display in Paris starting next month. Most Canadian athletes have already punched their ticket to the Games, but some are still competing to try and join them. One of them is Canadian track star Andre DeGrasse, winner of 6 Olympic medals, including gold in the men's 200 meters in Tokyo. But DeGrasse needed a strong showing in Finland yesterday to try to ensure his spot.
Jacobs begins to really ease ahead, just power pulling him to the front there, taking that one from Ali and Andre DeGrasse.
Now, it wasn't a win, but a third-place finish with a time of 10 seconds flat was good enough, presumably, for DeGrasse to punch his ticket to the Olympics, which would be his third, which, of course, you'll be able to watch on CBC television and listen to on CBC radio. But first, next week, it's the Canadian Trials in Montreal, where some of these athletes will try to make things official.
All right. Thanks a lot, Claude.
Thank you, Marcy.
That is Claude Fake filling in for Scott Regehr. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. That is a bright morning sky. The sun is shining. Not a lot of heat in the sun, though. A high of only 20 in Winnipeg today. Right now, we're at 12. Tuxedo has made history. The constituency, Tory blue for its entire 4 decades, has just elected an NDP MLA. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
Carla Compton has just become the first person other than a progressive conservative to win an election in Tuxedo.
We have proven that there is no such thing as a safe PC seat in Manitoba.
Tuxedo's been PC territory since it was created in 1981. It's only been represented by 2 MLAs, former Manitoba Premier Gary Filmon and former Premier Heather Stephenson. Stephenson resigned her seat earlier this year in the wake of a 2023 election defeat by Wab Kinew and his NDP. For the PCs, this is another setback, but defeated candidate Lawrence Pinsky suggested he will run again.
What do Ronald Reagan, Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, and Lawrence Pinsky have in common? We lost the first time.
The Tuxedo victory increases the NDP's majority in the Manitoba legislature to 35 seats. The PCs have 21 and face more political uncertainty over the next 10 months. They won't choose a permanent leader until April 2025. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Community groups are raising their voices against proposed funding cuts by the City of Winnipeg. Starting next year, the city proposes cutting $2.1 million from its community grant program. The Spence Neighborhood Association is among groups that could be affected. It offers a meal program for kids and other community members in need. Chef and kitchen manager Samantha Harrison makes 150 to 200 meals a day.
It's really, really scary because the funding is essential in so many people's lives in our community, and they really, really need this, and they really need food.
City Council casts a final vote on the proposed changes to the grant program at its meeting next week. Now, the Spence Neighborhood Association isn't alone with this need. A charity that feeds Winnipeggers in need finds it, too, is in need itself. Agape Table is experiencing what it says is an unprecedented demand for food, and they're running out. Executive Director Jim Steep says people can only stretch $1 so far these days.
Just kind of been escalating as we go along. I mean, back in 2019, we served 85,000 guests. And then in 21, it's all the way up to 125. And last year, 155,000. So it just keeps going up.
Steep says Agape Table urgently needs sandwich fillings, as well as fruit, granola bars, and water. Donations can be dropped off at 364 Furby, Monday to Friday between 8 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. An RCMP officer has admitted policies were not followed the day a 54-year-old man died in a police holding cell in the Pas. CBC reporter Kristen Annabelle has more on the inquest from the Pas.
The inquest into the death of John Edaway Capo in 2019 began its second day with testimony from an RCMP inspector. Edaway Capo died in an RCMP holding cell in the Pas after another detainee's leg fell on his neck, potentially smothering him. Christopher Massart told court Edaway Capo should not have gone 40 minutes without being checked by someone. He said it is RCMP policy to physically check all inmates every 15 minutes. He told court someone should have seen the leg on his neck and they should have gotten him help. The inquest will continue Wednesday with testimony from the Mountie who arrested him. Kristen Annabelle, CBC News, The Pas.
RCMP and Nipawin are asking for your help searching for 2 missing teens. Police think 14-year-old Henry Galt and 16-year-old Dennis Martin are in the Minnedosa area. They were reported missing last night. Galt is 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, with long hair in a ponytail. He was last seen wearing a black hoodie with white art on the front and sleeves, and black pants with a navy and black baseball cap. Martin is described as being 5 feet tall and petite, with mid-length reddish hair. She was last seen in a black zip-up with a gray hoodie and a flannel pajama pants. If you've seen them and know anything about where they might be, call RCMP or Crime Stoppers. WestJet is canceling flights because of labor turmoil with its aircraft maintenance union. The airline's decision will impact 40 flights and 6,500 passengers. The airline says it's preparing for labor action by the WestJet aircraft maintenance engineers and other tech ops employees. WestJet has approached the Canadian Industrial Labour Relations Board to intervene, and if accepted, it would send talks into arbitration, preventing job action. WestJet says it will park jets and consolidate flights for several days. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells in our news department this Wednesday morning. Well, let's get into the regional forecast now from CBC Manitoba with Abby.
Still enjoying the sunshine outside, 12 degrees. Expect a gentle westward breeze to come with that this morning. A high of 20 we're looking at. Tonight will be cleared and then becoming partly cloudy later. Heading west to Brandon, 7 degrees at the moment, mostly cloudy. Looking for some sunny spells throughout the day. Temperatures will reach 20. North in Thompson, it is 5 degrees with mostly cloudy skies. The morning will see increasing cloud cover and a 60% chance of shower this morning, but temperatures will climb to a comfortable 14 degrees. Further north in Churchill, it is 5 and mostly cloudy also. Today brings a 60% chance of showers and a high of 9. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies to stay with you folks up there. Down in Dauphin, 9 degrees. It started sunny out there, becoming a mix of sun and clouds later, with a chance of showers this afternoon and a risk of thunderstorm. The temperatures will reach around 20 degrees with increasing westward winds in the afternoon period. In Gimli, it is currently sunny, 11 degrees for the Interlake region today. Expect some cloudy conditions to roll in, a chance of showers later, then it's going to clear by late morning. The winds will pick up the breeze pace from the west by mid-morning, and we'll see a high of 20 degrees with clear skies tonight. Steinbach is also sitting at 11 degrees under cloudy conditions. It started cloudy, a slight chance of showers this morning. Then those cloudy conditions will clear up later, and we'll see light breeze from the west. It's going to be touching a high of 20 today. Finally, in Morris, 10 degrees under partly cloudy skies. For the Pembina Valley region, cloudy conditions, a chance of showers. Those cloudy conditions will clear up, and then we'll see a high of 20. Right now, Winnipeg, we are sitting at 11 degrees.
Okay, let's talk footwear, because it has been so... Yeah, listen to him. Ooh, you can tell this is one of Abby's favorite subjects. Because it has been so rainy out. I actually have been thinking about you, because I thought, I wonder if Abby brings out like his favorite and best collected shoes, or if you're waiting for like a dry patch like you're talking about in the weather today, because you collect Converse, right?
Yes, I collect All Stars, and I've been waiting for like tomorrow. Not like I started cleaning them. You know, when you sit on your couch and you're doing some crochet work and just knitting away, I've been cleaning them like all. That's
what you do.
Like all weekend, I've been just cleaning the white edges and just making it ready for summer.
With what? What do you use?
The Mr. Clean, you know, it's supposed to be for the
eraser thing?
The eraser thing, and it's just one of those hacks you see on YouTube, and you try it and it works, and I'm like, I'm just gonna sit here and just clean up all these spots.
Why did you start collecting Converse?
It's I love the rapper Snoop Doggy Dogg, and you know,
Me too.
There's always a thing. A man is identified by the shoes he wears, and I love Snoop so much. Whatever he wears, you see him with an All-Star, and I said, that might also look good on me.
What's your favorite pair? It does look good on you, by the way.
I think the black one would be my favorite.
Yeah. What's significant about them? Are they just classic or what?
No, because it's got this orange feel, and you know I love the sunny conditions, so it's like the black blend with the orange in the inside.
See what he just did?
Of
He
it.
put weather into his shoe.
Yeah,
it's because I love the sunny feel.
It's you know, it's like that. It's the orange feel just makes you feel like I'm walking on sunshine.
Cute. I love that.
That's how I
love
feel
that.
when
Okay.
I'm just sliding into that.
You absolutely need to bring that shoe tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
To
I
show
will do
folks
it.
on YouTube.
I will show the
Yeah.
folks.
And in the meantime, before we turn to Corey here, I will tell you, I thought about you this morning when I put on my cutest kicks.
Ooh.
Look at these little guys. Abby's up my game. Now, I'm showing you on YouTube. You can see my kicks, but just to describe them, I've got some New Balance, and they're like a blue suede, royal blue suede. They've got like the logos in like a turquoise, and the inside's pink polka dots. Come on. Aren't they cute?
Ooh.
I do not sit on the couch cleaning them. Don't
Try
judge
it,
me.
Try it. Mr. Clean. It was.
Corey Funk, we are waiting to hear from you about the commute, and I know it's been fairly quiet. So
Yeah, I'm also all self-conscious right now because Abby
Why?
says a man's identified by the shoes he wears, and I just wear ratty old shoes that I've had forever until they like fall off my feet. So don't read into it too much, Abby.
True story. When I started at CBC, one of the first things that the leader of this place said to me at the time was, "Oh, very nice shoes." And actually, I thought, "Oh, people do look at your shoes. It's a thing."
Uh-oh.
It's
Well, anyways, it's overall it's a pretty decent commute out there so far. I did get a call from Mike though. Just a heads up, if you are planning to drive down southbound King Edward today between 10 and 2, he's part of the crew doing some road work between Saskatchewan and Wellington. They're going to be chipping away at the left lane. Looks like there's going to be some construction there just for about 4 hours. So just might be a little slow going King Edward this afternoon. But if you do see something else going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. Be like Mike, 204-788-3093.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of Snoop Dogg, our next story is actually about cannabis, which Snoop Dogg is also known for. So is a Vancouver chef. He's been on a mission to make cannabis-infused dishes recognized as Canadian cuisine. His name is Travis Peterson. He's known as the Nomadic Chef. And he was in our city in Winnipeg last week hosting a private pop-up dinner, serving a 5-course dinner made with cannabis. Now, it may not be for everyone, he says, but it is an experience. So what's that like? CBC's Jim Agapito visited with Travis Peterson and asked some of the attendees at this dinner what the dishes were like.
Like, this is a gourmet meal, you never know there was cannabis in it.
I'm feeling euphoric.
I'm in the happy place right now.
A little warmed, a bit fuzzy inside.
I love food.
I definitely feel a little bit of something in there, a little tingle.
Kind of baked, and I like that.
My name's Chef Travis Peterson. I go by the name Nomad Cook. I'm so glad I never gave up on weed, because there were some times I thought maybe I should stop smoking and really figure out what I want to do with my life. When really all I had to do was take a couple things that I love, food, cannabis, sort of put them together.
You're on this mission to make, cooking with cannabis like Canadian cuisine. Tell me about that.
Yeah, to me, it was a Canadian cuisine. I mean, we were the first country to federally legalize this. This is the newest frontier in the culinary world. Culinary cannabis has been the forbidden fruit for the chef. You only need just something very special about these dinners that gets people to feel open and comfortable and really brings people together. So that really inspired me to keep going. And my goal is to bring this from the underground into the mainstream so this next generation of Canadian chefs can do this in a restaurant and not in Airbnbs and underground locations and that.
What's the response like? I mean, you're cooking with cannabis. I mean, people are thinking, is this just to get stoned? Like, what's it all about?
I've created a safe space to come into and know that you're in good hands. The way I'm able to do it is every course will have one infused component. I'll make that to 4 different variations of tolerance. I don't want to get my guests so high that they don't want to move around and do anything. I want to hit that perfect medium, heighten their sensories, the smell, the taste, the conversation they're having, right? So there's a lot more to this than just maximizing out the THC. For tonight's dinner, this will be our 4th course, our surf and turf. Okay. We've got that beautiful Alberta beef over there, tenderloin, all nice and cut up. We're gonna cook that to a medium rare. And then we've got some lobster tails, and then we're gonna make an infused béarnaise sauce that we'll pour on top. I'm gonna chop up my cannabis flower here. Again, just like I'm working with any green garden herb in the kitchen.
You've made for over 20,000 people. Okay. You must be having like celebrities or all these names come in and reach out. Could you name any? Are you allowed to?
I'll name one. It was here actually in Canada, in Vancouver, back in 2019. Andre Bocelli, the opera singer, hired me to cook for all of his roadies. He was kicking off a world tour in Vancouver. And so they hired me and we did a dinner for 25 people. They're part of the roadie crew. And Mr. Bocelli came in and we did this beautiful dinner, right?
So it's not just about getting high, it's about the taste.
Correct. I have a recommended dosing scale. It goes 1 to 5. So, to the scale, 1, 5 milligrams of THC. You'll get about 12 milligrams of CBD with that. 2 is 10 milligrams THC. 3 is 25. 4 is 50. And 5 is 100. Okay? We can go anywhere in between. It's whatever your tolerance level is. Now, I got 3 rules that go along with the dinner. Okay? And the first rule I've got 0 tolerance for, no peer pressure. If I catch someone peer pressuring someone else into a dose you're not comfortable with, we don't serve you cannabis. The reason I'm strict with that rule is I have had 900 first-time cannabis users come in, right? Whether this is your very first time or your Snoop Dogg, everyone leaves with the same experience tonight. That's my goal as a chef. Second rule, don't switch seats. I'm assigning a cannabis number to your chair, not your face. If you guys move around, that's Russian roulette. That's your fault, not mine, okay? And our last rule is I won't increase the dose halfway through the dinner. Whatever you decide to start with is what you'll get up to the very end. However, at any point, if you want me to stop adding it in, you can easily do that. It's a Big Mac egg roll. Pickles, lettuce, onion, American cheddar, ground beef. Then I've infused a Big Mac sauce that we're gonna put on top, a little bit of lettuce, be a perfect little starter.
It's more than pretty good, it's very good.
It's a miso glazed blue oyster mushroom. We've roasted on the barbecue a little bit. Then this is a black garlic Dijon mustard on the bottom. That's where our infusion of the cannabis is. Then we're gonna shave truffle on top.
Very savory, very umami.
The next course, it's a little surf and turf.
Thank you.
Wow.
We're feeling it all right, we're feeling it now.
Oh, the giggles are just
Happy and giggly.
My name is Nick Kapoor. The meal is fabulous. The fact that I can't even tell that I'm eating it is gorgeous.
So I'm gonna get dessert rolling. We have a coconut banana pudding on the bottom, then diced up kiwi strawberry, toasted coconut flakes, and then taking that kiwi strawberry Snapple, frozen it, put it through our ice shaver.
Joel Daniel Carlton. For this meal, I'd definitely rate it a solid 10 out of 10. Chef Travis has knocked it out of the park, and we're all having an amazing time. Yeah, absolutely. It's great for beginners and novices. It's also great for people that have done a lot of cannabis or a lot of infused dinners, and I'd highly recommend this to anyone.
So the CBC's Jim Agapito out there exploring something that happened in Winnipeg. He was at a pop-up dinner hosted by nomadic chef Travis Peterson, who was here last week, cooking with cannabis. And so if you want to see the full video that went along with that item, if you're listening on the radio this morning, if you weren't watching on YouTube, man, the food looked really good. You can go to our website today and see the story, or to our YouTube stream, and then you just basically rewind if you want to check it out. But the website is cbc.ca/Manitoba.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Right now, it's 13 minutes to 8 o'clock, 12 degrees in Winnipeg, partly cloudy. Although the sun is winning in downtown Winnipeg. It's beautiful out this morning, if a bit crisp. We do have a high of 20 degrees in the city today, and Brandon is 7 degrees right now. You're also heading for 20. Up in Thompson, it's 5 degrees, cloud cover, but a high of 14 for you today. And you also in Thompson do have a 60% chance that you'll see some showers. The commute's been going fine. Call us if not, if it changes, 788-3093. Well, National Indigenous Peoples Day is on Friday, and to celebrate, CBC's Unreserved, Rosanna Deerchild, is talking to Indigenous changemakers about their recommendations for everything from books to food to movies. Cheryl Carey is an enrolled member of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. She's also the host of the Red Gaze podcast. It's a show that looks at movies and TV shows through an Indigenous lens. This is Cheryl speaking with Rosanna.
I can remember the movie that made me aware that we could be in movies. we never watched Westerns or anything like that growing up. So wasn't until I was older that I actually saw a Western and was outraged at the representation there. But I remember when I was, this is in middle school somewhere, and I saw Billy Jack. And I mean, obviously, Billy Jack's a white guy, but I mean, in the movie, he was a halfie like me.
Mm-hmm.
It just blew my mind. Like, oh, wow, that's, I'm in a movie, a person like me is in a movie. And, and he was just fighting for Native rights and, standing up for Native kids. And like I said, it kind of blew my mind because up until that point, it was such a normal state of movies to not see Native representation that it blew my mind to think that, wow, like we could make movies like this.
Friday is National Indigenous Peoples Day. What questions do you have about reconciliation in our province? Author and University of Manitoba Indigenous Knowledge Professor Nigon Sinclair will be our guest and can answer your questions. Call our listener line now and leave us a message at 204-788-3797.
So it all stitches together. Special programming Friday with the call-in with Janet, who you just heard there, but also Unreserved. If you want to check out their special for National Indigenous Peoples Day, you can find it online, and it also re-airs over the weekend. Right now it's 10 to 8 on 89.3 FM, 990 AM or on the app. And as you've been hearing in the news, last night the race to represent one of the province's most affluent constituencies came to an end. It marked the second time in 8 months that Tuxedo residents headed to the polls, following former Premier Heather Stefanson's resignation in April from her seat there. And NDP candidate Carla Compton made history, managing to flip their riding from blue to orange with a 600-vote lead over over PC candidate Lawrence Pinsky. The seat has historically been a progressive conservative stronghold, like for 4 decades. But just last October, you might recall during the election, the NDP came within 300 votes of taking it on October 3rd. But now they've won. And it is the morning after the election. Carla Compton is in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
How are you doing this morning? Is it sunk in?
It's still sinking in. I think I'm still in a little bit of that floating, energy is still buzzing. I haven't even looked at all my messages yet.
I bet.
Because I knew I had a late night, early morning, so trying to stay focused on what needs to still be done and sort that stuff out.
Who's the first person you were able to share your excitement with? Like when you think about, yourself personally, who did you turn to or call that you really shared in this moment with?
I was really fortunate to have some family and friends with me in my campaign office with my team when we received the news. So they were right there. I was able to hug and celebrate with them before I knew anyone else knew.
You're a nurse. You've been a nurse. Now you're going to be a politician. Why are you making the leap?
Well, and it's interesting. It doesn't feel like I'm leaving nursing to become something different. This really feels like I'm doing, I think I said it earlier, at my initial announcement, but it feels like I'm evolving in my nursing practice. That what brought me to nursing was wanting to help people and wanting to support people to live their best lives. And this feels like an opportunity to do that on a bigger scale, of being able to work with government, in government, be able to really advocate for the constituents of Tuxedo, what I've heard on the doorsteps already, what I will continue to hear from them, and really do what I can to play my part in helping Manitoba become the best province.
I'm curious what ideas you might bring forward about what needs to be done specifically to retain nurses, given that obviously you've really recently walked in those footsteps. As you were a hemodialysis nurse, I know. Yeah. So are you coming in already with ideas you hope will be heard?
Oh, I definitely have ideas. Some my own, some I've gotten from folks on the doorstep, some I've gotten from colleagues.
So what do you think can be done to retain nurses?
There's a few things. I'm looking forward to getting to work and finding out what the current plan is, because I'm sure there's already some things. I know Wab Canoe and the current NDP government has been already getting to work to fix healthcare and make things better. And so before I start spouting out a whole bunch of ideas, I kind of want to get a lay of the land.
That's fair.
See what they're planning, and then offer input from that point.
Why do you think the vote last night went the way it did? After you've broken four decades of PCs holding that seat.
Yeah, well, I really do believe the residents of Tuxedo constituency, really gave a big message in the general election that they were disappointed in the PCs for it to be such a close race. And, Bob Canoe and the NDP government heard, and they really wanted to respond. And I know every day, me and my team, from the beginning, we were knocking on as many doors to connect with as many residents as possible, because we know it's about building relationships and proving to the citizens of Tuxedo that we're in it for them.
What did you hear on the doors as some of the biggest issues for people in that part of the city?
Definitely healthcare. And what I really appreciated and kept thanking people for doing is sharing their experiences. Because obviously I work in healthcare, but I have a very specific lens that I've experienced, and I know I don't know everything. And so that was a message I really kept inviting folks to let me know what they've experienced, what's not working, and even the things that, this was this really amazing experience, actually. And because to know what has been good and what's not working, that's the only way that we can find the best solutions forward.
I often ask people who are elected to office some personal questions, just so those that elected you can understand sort of who you are a little bit. So what would you like to share about, and I'll let you pick because I didn't warn you about this. So guilty pleasure or something that people might be surprised to know about you. I mean, I know we mentioned you're a nurse. I know that you identify as a mother, but tell us something about yourself that you'd like to share. Do you have a guilty pleasure? Do you watch anything or eat anything or do anything? Or most of us have one.
I'm very much a sci-fi nerd.
Oh, cool. What kind of sci-fi?
I'm a big fan of Star Trek and Star Wars. I know some people say you can't like both.
I do.
But I'm a big fan of science fiction, fantasy, make-believe stuff.
I love that.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And as far as being a mom, because I know you identify that, how many kids do you have?
Well, and I was actually going to say, I definitely have mothering energy, but I'm an auntie. I don't actually.
Pardon me.
Yeah,
I got that
no,
wrong.
that's okay. That's okay. You know what? People ask me all the time. Even people have known me for years. Patients and everything. They say, "Oh, and how are your children doing?" And I say, "Well, thank you. I don't actually have children. I have nieces and nephews."
Oh, that's on me. I got that wrong. That's an error. I apologize.
That's totally fine.
Yeah. What would you like to say to the people of Tuxedo this morning that elected you?
Oh, I can't say thank you too much or enough. I just feel so honored that they're entrusting me with this really new thing, right? This is a big thing for the folks of Tuxedo to trust someone of a different party. And I really don't take that trust for granted. I don't take it lightly. I know I've started to build relationships with folks, but I'm really looking forward to the next, I believe it's about 3.5 years of building more relationships, strengthening their trust in me.
Thank you so much for coming in after what was an exciting and I guess a late night. And I know you've got lots of messages to go through, so we appreciate you being on CBC.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Carla Compton is the MLA-elect for Tuxedo, which is historic. Let's go to Heather Wells now with the news.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg community group worries proposed funding cuts could lead to children going hungry. The Spence Neighborhood Association is among groups arguing against a plan by the city to cut $2.1 million from the community grant program. Part of that grant it receives goes towards a meal program that feeds children and others in need. Now, that's not the only group needing help to feed others. Agape Table says its demand for meals is growing and it's running out of food. It's asking for donations of sandwich fillings, fruit, juice cups, and water. We'll hear more in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you. Carla Compton leaving the studio, thanking us for her time on CBC. It is 12 degrees in Winnipeg right now. Our high today is 20. Thank you for joining us today on 89.3. The ride, walk or roll, the commute this morning, going well. Call us if you see anything. Corey is picking up the line at 788-3093. Still ahead. Back to serious matters here. Violent crimes are surging in Winnipeg, according to the new police stats report that came out yesterday. Violent crime is up 30%. That's the 5-year average, 30%. But how safe do you feel in the city? We're going to hear from some Winnipeggers coming up right after 8 o'clock. Stay with us.
today on Q with Tom Power.
Here's a question. Do you think you need to go through something hard like trauma in order to be funny? Do you think behind every joke there's some sadness? Paul Scheer has some thoughts on that as he's here to talk about his new memoir, Joyful Recollections of Trauma.
This trauma that I lived through, that is the fire in which I was forged.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The U.S. Surgeon General wants health effect warnings on social media platforms like what's on cigarette packages. And some young tech activists say even more is needed to protect their generation from increasing harm. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Canada's below-target defence spending will be a sore spot. The NATO Secretary General visits Ottawa today. Jens Stoltenberg is expected to raise the issue when he meets with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But the government is defending its stance. It says the Department of National Defence already has more money than it can spend. The CBC's Murray Brewster has the details.
I think inevitably we will go to 2%.
Defense Minister Bill Blair putting the best face on what could be an awkward visit by NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. New data published by the Military Alliance shows Canada is now among 8 other nations that do not meet the NATO spending target of 2% of GDP. Canada is expected to hit 1.37% this year. But significantly, it has not produced a plan, as requested, to get to 2%.
It is fairly superficial to only speak about 2% without examining how the funding is going to be spent in the short and the long term.
Treasury Board President Anita Anand defending the reluctance to articulate a plan for 2%, noting the Defense Department has trouble spending its budget each year, mostly because it doesn't have enough staff to properly manage complex procurement projects.
Why would we continue to fill the books with additional money if that money can't get out the doors?
That is a very good point, one that has been repeated around Ottawa for over a decade in not one, but 2 independent studies which warned both the current Liberal government and the previous Conservative government that more staff were needed. The latest defense policy promises to hire more procurement staff to address the shortfall critical to meeting the NATO goal, but that will only happen next year. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
NDP MP Jenny Kwan says it is time to name names. She wants the House of Commons to publicly name the politicians accused of taking part in foreign interference.
It will send a clear message to those foreign states that they will not be able to continue to use parliamentarians in this way.
But right now, those names are classified. For more, let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what exactly is Kwan asking for here?
Marcia, Jenny Kwan argues her right to do her job without fear or intimidation has been compromised now that this committee says at least a few of her colleagues are witting or semi-witting participants in foreign meddling. She's calling on House Speaker Greg Fergus to agree, triggering a debate on what our elected officials are prepared to do to protect their independence and integrity. It's not unlike what played out last year when Michael Chong and Aaron O'Toole argued that their rights were breached after they learned from media reports that CSIS held intelligence on how the MPs and their families were being targeted by diplomats at Beijing's consulate in Toronto. The diplomat that Canada eventually expelled was also found to be in contempt of Parliament. But this time, the person or persons that this process might hold accountable could be serving among them. The House already passed a motion asking the ongoing public inquiry to specifically probe the participation of parliamentarians in foreign interference. But it's not clear that the commissioner would be legally clear to publicly name names in that process either. Richard Fadden, a former head of Canada's spy agency, says at the end of the day, politicians have to police themselves.
I think we need some form of parliamentary involvement in this because this isn't entirely a security and intelligence issue or a national security issue. It's an accountability issue.
But isn't the House about to rise for the summer, like imminently?
That's right. Might be only a few hours away now from this 3-month summer recess for MPs. If the Speaker agrees with Kwan, this process might not play out until fall. But there are extraordinary legalities involved if MPs are heading towards revealing names under the cover of their parliamentary privilege that would otherwise be a violation of the Secrets Act. Relaxing summer? Maybe not so much with this hanging over everyone.
All right, thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. The leaders of North Korea and Russia are marking a new phase in their relationship. Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin were supposed to meet for 1 hour, but they spoke for 2. And they signed a comprehensive strategic partnership. As Patrick Falk tells us, the deal cements their military and economic cooperation in a united front against Washington.
There was a warm embrace on the tarmac as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un greeted Vladimir Putin in Pyongyang. In their talks, the two agreed relations between the two countries are headed to new levels. Kim says Russia is playing a key role in keeping strategic balance in the world. We will unconditionally support all of Russia's policies, he says. The US and allies are eyeing expanded military cooperation between the two. Satellite imagery shows Kim's trip to Russia in September was followed by a massive growth in arms transfer. Western countries have accused Pyongyang of giving ballistic missiles and artillery shells to Russia for its war in Ukraine. There are also fears Moscow could provide aid for North Korea's missile and nuclear programs banned under UN Security Council resolutions.
They seem to have accepted.
Jenny Town is a senior fellow at the Stimson Center and says Russia has made statements indicating it recognizes North Korea as a nuclear-armed state.
At the same time, they do still parrot language about not violating international law and upholding sanctions on some level.
In an article Putin penned in North Korea's official ruling party newspaper, he praises Pyongyang for resisting what he called US economic pressure, blackmail and threats. He also promises to develop alternative trade and mutual settlement mechanisms not controlled by the West, signaling opportunities for North Korea's economic growth within an anti-West bloc led by Russia. Patrick Falk for CBC News, Singapore.
In South Africa, incumbent President Cyril Ramaphosa is taking the oath of office for the second time.
I, Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
Ramaphosa's ANC party was able to form a coalition government after failing to win a majority in last month's elections. Former political rivals are now government partners, and the ANC says it will ensure that all parties are represented in government. Some South Africans say they hope this new coalition will help bring unity to the continent's most industrialized nation. WestJet has canceled dozens of flights in anticipation of a possible strike. Aircraft maintenance workers could walk off the job Thursday night. They served the airline with notice earlier this week. WestJet says the cancellations were necessary to park planes in a safe and organized manner before a potential strike. People across the United States are celebrating Juneteenth today. June 19th is a national holiday recognizing the end of slavery in most states. It was on this day in 1865 when the Emancipation Proclamation was ordered to be enforced in Texas, 2 years after it was signed into law. The Civil War was over, but the law only applied to former Confederate states. It took several months before enslaved people in other states gained their freedom. And on this day, people are also remembering a legend. Willie Mays died on Tuesday at the age of 93. The Hall of Famer is one of the game's most beloved players, and he was a pioneer as a member of the Negro Leagues. Steve Futterman has more on Mays' life and legacy.
He was a magical player.
Here's the pitch to Willie. Swung on, hit deep to left. That one is way back, way back, way back.
At times it seemed there was nothing Willie Mays couldn't do. Barry Bloom is a longtime sports writer who covered Mays.
He could hit, he could run, he had a great arm.
He hit more than 600 home runs, yet his most famous play is his over-the-shoulder catch in the 1954 World Series, a catch some consider the greatest in the history of baseball.
Just brought this crowd to its feet with a catch, which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
Last night, in a remarkable convergence of events, at the very moment May's death was announced, here in his hometown of Birmingham, Mays and other black baseball pioneers were being saluted as part of a week-long series of events honoring the early black players. A special minor league game had to be interrupted.
One of the greatest players in the history of our game has passed away at the age of 93. He was born here in Alabama, got his start in this very ballpark.
Tomorrow was set to be the culmination of the week's events, a game between May's team, the San Francisco Giants, and the St. Louis Cardinals. On Monday, Mays announced he would not be able to make it. Now, Major League Baseball is planning a special memorial for Willie Mays. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Birmingham, Alabama.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime. CBCnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are live downtown, or you might be watching us on YouTube or on the app this morning having a listen. Thanks for joining us. You're on 89.3 FM on CBC, and we have been at 12 degrees. Abby's going to update that for us as we dip into our forecast in a moment. There's still some sunshine downtown, which is awesome. Yesterday, lots to absorb in new statistics that came out from the police report. The City of Winnipeg, their services annual report came out, and they looked at the stats. So one of the things that they looked at specifically was violent crime, and there has been a drastic increase in violent crimes in our city. So for context here, over 5 years, violent crime has increased 31.4%. This half hour on the program, we're going to hear from what some Winnipeggers had to say when CBC's Jim Agapito went to a neighborhood where some of those crimes were being reported at some of the highest levels. So that's in the West End. And we also are going to have a focus on youth crime this half hour in a discussion. And I'll share the statistics from the report that came out around youth crime specifically in a moment. Right now, though, let's go to Heather Wells, who's here with other news and updates. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a history-making night in Tuxedo. For the first time ever, voters in that constituency have elected an NDP MLA. Carla Compton, a nurse, is Tuxedo's MLA-elect. She beat the PC's Lawrence Pinsky by a margin of just over 600 votes. Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew says his party's by-election victory in a long-time PC stronghold shows Manitobans are rejecting divisive politics. And an RCMP officer has admitted policies were not followed the day a 54-year-old man died in a police holding cell in the Pas. John Edaway Capo died after another detainee's leg fell on his neck, potentially smothering him. We're going to hear what the RCMP inspector told the inquest yesterday, coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Right now, let's get into our forecast and some more details. Abby Adeyemi has those. Good morning.
Good morning once again. Right now, we are at 13. It is wonderful out there. Today, we're expecting some cloudy conditions to mix with this sunny moment we're seeing right now. Then it's going to clear up as the morning progresses. We're aiming for a high of 20 today with light breeze from the west. Now, looking at tonight's forecast, it will be clear at first, then partly cloudy into the evening period with light winds. Tomorrow looks bright and sunny. By the afternoon, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds, and we're climbing to a high of 20. In Winnipeg, it is 13. Brandon is at 9, expecting sunny spells today. Thompson seeing light showers at the moment at 6 degrees. Churchill also at 6. Dauphin is at 12, while Gimli, Steinbach, Morris all at 13 degrees, seeing sunny conditions and heading to a high of 20. In Winnipeg, we are at 13, and we're going to get to a high of 20 today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk.
Got a call from Mike. This is just a heads up. It's been a pretty quiet commute overall, but if you are going to be driving southbound on King Edward this afternoon between around 10 and 2, he's part of a crew doing some road work there on the left-hand lane, the far left lane. So look out for that. Stay right. Might make things a little slow for just a few hours there. Other than that, Louise Bridge closed both ways until June 28th, but things seem to be going pretty smoothly right now. Otherwise, if it's not for you, though, give me a call if you're walking, biking, driving. Tell me what you're seeing. 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, we got data yesterday that we want to look at this morning. The new report by the Winnipeg Police says there's been a drastic increase in violent crime in the city. That's just part of a large report looking at all kinds of different things. Overall, crime is down actually year over year. But when you look at these details, I'm not lightly using the word drastic, because last year when it comes to violent crime, there were 15,074 crimes reported to police. Year over year, there were 11,469 reports. That was the year before. So if you look at the 5-year average for violent crime, this is a number that is easy to absorb. It's up 31.4%. So we wondered how safe people feel in the city. CBC's Jim Agapito took to the streets of the West End because in the interactive map and these stats, and you can go to the police's website, you can click on every neighborhood and you can see what's going on by the stats. Jim headed to the West End because it's an area that had among the highest number of crimes reported. And he asked some people there what they're seeing in their daily lives.
Jay Aaron. I've had my car vandalized and things like that, but nothing like, no physical altercations or anything scary like that. Just growing up in the area, I can't say I've seen an increase. It's kind of been the same stuff over and over again. And I feel like it would be nice to have more police support, more people watching, that kind of thing, especially in an area like this where it has been going up.
Do you feel safe living in the area?
Because I've grown up in it, yes. You know, it's home. It's never felt like it's been a burden to me. I do feel like, you know, a lot of the times our friends or colleagues will kind of struggle coming into the area just because they know there's such a high crime rate here.
Wayne Sidorsky.
Have you ever been a victim of crime?
Who hasn't?
What happened?
Been jumped.
With that being said, what do you think is contributing to that kind of crime that you experienced?
Lack of resources.
What do you think about policing then in the area?
Useless. They don't do anything.
Do you feel safe living in this area?
I don't go looking for trouble, and I've been fine.
It's interesting how quickly he answered the question, have you been a victim of crime, and simply said, who hasn't? Jim Agapito headed out to the streets of the West End yesterday just to talk to some Winnipeggers about their daily lives and how crime factors in. That is because that neighborhood is represented in the stats as one of the places where they had the highest number of crimes reported. So these stats are from Winnipeg Police. As I mentioned, there's been a surge in violent crime. Now, included, though, in that increase is youth crime. On average, in these stats, in the last 5 years, violent youth crimes have increased 43.4%. Youth crime involving a weapon has doubled since 2021, with youth accounting for 1 in every 5 people charged with a weapons crime. And in 2023, just to look at how young some people are in these stats represented, how young some of these kids are, 77 youth were younger than 12 years old at the time of the offense. That means they could not be charged under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Now, Kent Duick is here to talk about the statistics and also to talk about where we go from here. Kent is founder of Inner City Youth Alive, which is a Christian-based center in Winnipeg. He's been working with at-risk teens for nearly 40 years. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So I saw you reacting to some of the numbers I was saying and to hearing some of the residents. What did you think when you saw, looked through this report?
I mean, on a certain level, there's no surprise. It was sort of an affirmation of what we know sort of anecdotally. And also, when I think about the number of conversations that we have in terms of debriefing violent incidents that staff have been intervening in, or hearing stories in the community, it maps onto what we're hearing in the community perfectly. So not surprised, but also it's so concerning.
So it reflects what you've been seeing at the grassroots level in your work.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think that when we talk to community members as well, you get a sense of just a higher level of sort of vigilance and tension in the community. And, a while back I was driving down Salter, witnessed a mom that I've known for years almost get assaulted with a bat, picked her up, and, she kind of shakes it off and I drop her off at work. And so it's almost, it was traumatizing, but she's just sort of almost normalized what could have almost happened there. So one of the things that concerns me is that we don't want to get to the point of normalizing this negative kind of trend.
Is that what you had sort of, and tell me if I'm reading into this, but I saw you have a reaction when we just heard that gentleman in the West End say.
Who hasn't?
Yeah.
No, that's, it's crazy. Again, just a while back, there was a young man that was stabbed in the head with a screwdriver for the crime of waiting at a bus stop. And so I sat with him and we were going on, like looking at his wounds and kind of helping him work through that. And I was just amazed at how, he just took it in stride. I couldn't believe how he just thought, well, this is what happens, right?
Um, your organization, Inner City Youth Alive, as I mentioned, has been in the community for nearly 40 years. What changes have you noticed in the most recent years when it comes to teen violence and maybe also to weapons? Because that's reflected highly in this report.
Yeah, well, seeing that knife crimes up 21% is not a surprise. I think we've noticed that a lot of kids just carry a weapon. And even the good kids, we had an incident a while back where we took a knife off of a 10-year-old. And when I debriefed it with him, he was in tears saying, I was walking with my sisters. I felt I had to carry a knife. I was trying to protect myself, right? So he had no intent of hurting anyone, but, it came to our attention, so we had to deal with it. And so when you have, if you have everyone that kind of feels like, the good kids that feel like I kind of have to carry something to protect myself, then, it kind of just has a snowball effect.
How easy is it to get weapons?
Oh, so easy. Yeah. Yeah. In terms of knives, that's just the easiest thing to get your hands on. You see the uptick with guns as well. And that obviously points to the fact that there's a little bit of easier access. So yeah, it's kind of understood.
Drugs. I'm looking at numbers in this report now. So drugs, the year change, drug crimes were up 10.9%. Now, over the 5-year average, they're actually down by 19%, but year over year, they're up 10. What role do you think drug use plays into what we're seeing when it comes to violent crime?
It's massive. I think meth is a game changer in that the crimes are, somebody who's maybe in psychosis and commits a heinous act and would never have done that if it wasn't for meth, or somebody who's dope sick and has to get another hit, and people will do things when they're dope sick that they would never do in their in their right mind. So and then enforcement as well. That if you're running drug trade, violence is basically that's a way of enforcing. So there's a bunch of ways that drugs are impacting this data.
Earlier this year, police launched something called Project Surge. So that intended to take a closer look at youth crime. And during the project, they identified a group of 117 young people that they said are responsible for 1,795 police incidents. What do you think that says about the types of crime we're seeing right now? And is that, I guess, trying to get a sense of repeat offenders versus, how widespread the problems are? I'm not sure if you can respond to that, Kent.
It's a good question. I'm really torn on this one because what you see there is a trend that you see across Canada. I know in Vancouver, there's handful, 157 individuals that committed over 4,000 violent offenses. And so if you're going to, if you just think about it, you have an individual who is given to violence, and they commit that act, and they say to police, which they always do. This is what I hear from the police. The most common phrase is, "I'll be out before you're off shift." So there's zero consequence for the crime they commit. They're out again. So there's been nothing saying, I shouldn't do this again. There's no deterrent, nothing that sort of breaks the cycle. And so, and then you have that individual. If you track it, I always want to sort of humanize the data, right? So if you think about that individual who committed that act and did it, without remorse. Mm-hmm. And I heard from a youth in the Manitoba Youth Center. He told me that people don't understand how violent some kids are. And so I think we have to open our eyes to the reality that this can be really violent, and so then that kid is out in the community now. He's had no deterrent, nothing holding him back, and what's stopping him from committing it again? And then you start to get this snowball thing. I can't even imagine 1,700 offenses by 117 youth. That means. Again, to humanize it, there's how many victims are there behind those incidents?
Having said that, when they're back out in community, are those kids also finding supports, those teenagers? Or is that also just something that we're behind in terms of, with respect to obviously the work that you do, not being able to keep up with the number of kids that might need those supports?
I think there's definitely not enough supports, and it's so sad. When you see youth released, and then often the condition isn't even that they attend school. the condition isn't, like that. They find they have a support system, and so they're kind of thrown into a setting where they're just drawn in. The pull of the community just draws them into their past patterns.
I want to ask you as a last question, what do you think needs to happen moving forward to change the stats we're talking about this morning? And also, you can weigh in as well, because we're about to have a new police chief. So I wonder if you want to weigh in on what we need in that person.
Well, back in the 90s, when we started this interagency anti-gang coalition, and we were courageous about steps we took. We didn't put up with things and that was a community-wide agencies. And so we do have to have a community-wide approach, and we have to be courageous. People are sort of tentative when they talk about this, just don't know what to do, don't know how to talk about it, don't know how to address the issues. And I think the one low-key argument I would have with some statements I've read in the Free Press from police is that we cannot arrest our way out of this. I would push back and say I think we can arrest our way out of about 80% of it, because just look at that data. Those 117 youth, they need to be contained and cared for. And I'm not talking lock them up and throw away the key. I'm talking we need to also take a look at our prison systems and what services, how are kids dealing with their trauma when they're incarcerated. There's so much we could do to improve what happens if you have to incarcerate a kid, to help them heal and help them, because violence is the sound that pain makes. So people are kind of acting out of their own trauma.
Appreciate having you in today. I know that you last time you were in, you invited CBC to Inner City Youth Alive to be a community studio. So we'll take you up on that at some point for sure, and get surrounded by the young people you work with. Appreciate it.
I look forward to that, Marcia. Thank you.
That's Kent Duick, founder of Inner City Youth Alive, with us live on CBC. So if you want to read more about the stats, it's an extensive report. You can find it embedded in the story on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Friday is National Indigenous Peoples Day. What questions do you have about reconciliation in our province? Author and University of Manitoba Indigenous Knowledge Professor Nigon Sinclair will be our guest and can answer your questions. Call our listener line now and leave us a message at 204-788-3797.
So that's between 12:30 and 1, the call-in conversation, and they're different every day. So tune in today between 12:30 and 1. Right now it is 8:26 a.m. It's 13 degrees in Winnipeg. Well, the call-in conversation yesterday actually was about something that this song we're about to play is also about. The U.S. Surgeon General, the the call to put warning labels on social media platforms, just like you might see in a cigarette pack. So whether you feel like that's a good idea or not, a lot of people are talking about whether or not it's possible to have a healthy relationship with social media. So that's what this next song is about. This is Winnipeg singer-songwriter Cassidy Mann. Her new song's called Disappointing the Internet.
Should I be at a party? Should I be more social? Should I feel guilty? My night is over. Is it pathetic to spend a Friday in my bedroom? Does it count as smiling if it doesn't show up on a screen? 'Cause I see other people on the World Wide Web, I lose it all. They're doing everything that I'm not.
Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's partly cloudy, 13 degrees right now. We're headed to a cool high of 20 under a mostly sunny afternoon. Tuxedo's newest MLA says she feels honored to be the constituency's first NDP MLA. Last night, NDP candidate Carla Compton flipped the longtime Conservative stronghold by slightly more than 600 votes ahead of the PC candidate Lawrence Pinsky. Compton, who is a nurse, says she and her team spent a lot of time in Tuxedo knocking on doors to build relationships and to find out what is top of mind for people there.
Definitely healthcare. And what I really appreciated and kept thanking people for doing is sharing their experiences. Because obviously I work in healthcare, but I have a very specific lens that I've experienced, and I know I don't know everything.
Compton says she has ideas on how to retain nurses and improve health care for Manitobans. Now, for the PCs, this is another electoral setback. After losing Tuxedo, the party has been reduced to just 2 of Winnipeg's 32 constituencies. PC candidate Lawrence Pinsky criticized the NDP for calling the by-election 4 weeks ago before any other party was ready. At the time, the Tories were in the middle of their nomination race, and Pinsky was out of the country.
It was an opportunistic call from the Premier. That's what happened, and he did it in very short order. It was a tactical decision instead of substantive. Had I had a little more time, we would have won for certain.
Pinsky compared himself to Ronald Reagan, Winston Churchill, and Margaret Thatcher as people who lost elections early in their political careers. An RCMP officer has admitted policies were not followed on the day a 54-year-old man died in a police holding cell in the Pas. CBC reporter Kristen Annabelle has more.
The inquest into the death of John Edaway Capo in 2019 began its second day with testimony from an RCMP inspector. Edaway Capo died in an RCMP holding cell in the Pas after another detainee's leg fell on his neck, potentially smothering him. Christopher Massart told court Edaway Capo should not have gone 40 minutes without being checked by someone. He said it is RCMP policy to physically check all inmates every 15 minutes. He told court someone should have seen the leg on his neck and they should have gotten him help. The inquest will continue Wednesday with testimony from the Mountie who arrested him. Kristen Annabelle, CBC News, The Pas.
Community groups are raising their voices against proposed funding cuts by the City of Winnipeg. Starting next year, the city proposes cutting $2.1 million from its community grant program. The Spence Neighborhood Association is among groups that could be affected. It offers a meal program for kids and other community members in need. Chef and kitchen manager Samantha Harrison makes 150 to 200 meals a day.
It's really, really scary because the funding is essential in so many people's lives in our community, and they really, really need this, and they really need food.
City Council casts a final vote on the proposed changes to the grant program at its meeting next week. Now, they are not alone. A Winnipeg soup kitchen is also struggling to feed a growing number of people. Agape Table says they're dealing with an unprecedented demand for food, and they're running out. Executive Director Jim Steep says in 5 days last week, a record 4,162 people asked for and received a meal.
It's getting tough to... Every day it's like 800 sandwiches, 800 bowls of soup. It's tough, but we're doing it. We're getting it done.
Steve says they've never had to turn guests away, but need donations to keep up. He says Agape urgently needs sandwich fillings, as well as fruit, granola bar, juice boxes, and water. Donations can be dropped off at Agape at 364 Furby, Monday to Friday, between 8 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Well, don't ever count them out.
Scores! Connor McDavid has done it again, and this one's going back to Edmonton.
Connor McDavid with 2 goals and 2 assists as the Oilers beat the Florida Panthers 5-3 last night. McDavid not taking all the credit, saying it was a great performance from the team. Now, Game 6 will be played Friday in Edmonton. Florida still leads the series 3-2. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
It's exciting stuff. We don't want to jinx it, so we won't talk about it anymore. Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison and Alana Cole in our news department this morning. Thank you, guys. Thanks to our team of associate producers. Thanks to our leaders in unit, Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez, as well as to our live team, which this morning is Dylan Longhurst, Brad Lillies, Corey Funk, and Abby Adiyemi. So, Corey, last word on the road?
Yes, Sarah called on the perimeter between Dunn Road and Wenzel heading north. The right lane is blocked for construction, and they're kind of tearing up a bunch of concrete, so it looks like it's going to be that case for a few days at least, and it's pretty backed up, says Sarah, between Dunn and Wenzel on the perimeter.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sarah, for calling. Abby, take it away with the last look at our forecast.
Across the province, Winnipeg will enjoy partly cloudy skies with a high of 20 degrees today, while up in Thompson and Churchill, temperatures around 6 degrees. Chance of showers warming up to 14 degrees later. Down in the south, Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, Steinbach, Maurice expecting varying conditions from sunny spells to cloudy skies clearing later, and all highs around 20 degrees.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for listening to Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We'll talk to you again tomorrow right here on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. And I will just briefly mention the next 2 days we've got our monthly interviews. They just landed 2 days apart here. So on Friday we have the Premier on live, and tomorrow we have the Mayor of the City of Winnipeg on live. So I always invite you, if you have questions, to call our listener line at 788-3205. Stay tuned to CBC. The Current's coming up next. Have a good one.